Can everybody hear?
Okay,
Hello?
okay, all right.
All right. If everybody can hear, we're going to get the meeting started. So we will stand for a moment of silence in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Madam Secretary, can I have a roll call, please?
Jamie Girardi,
Here.
Don Anderson,
Here.
Peter Hansel,
Here.
Roberto Size, Christopher Poole, Chris Williams,
Here.
Chairman Charles Gray.
Here. And proof of publication, please.
The items were advertised in the Tampa Bay Times on February 16th, 2022, February 23rd, 2022, and March 6th, 2022.
All right, thank you very much. So before we get started, anybody who intends to give testimony today, if you will stand and raise your right hand, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Planning Committee meeting of March 17th, 2022. We're appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. We meet twice monthly. We serve as a local planning agency, and we hold public hearings and transmit to the Board of County Commissioners recommendations on comprehensive plan amendments, land development code amendments, rezonings, and conditional use requests. The Planning Commission is the final decision-making body for special exceptions, certain appeals, variance requests, and certain alternative standard requests. However, final decisions may be appealed to the Board of County Commissioners, and we have those dates available for anybody who needs to know when they are. If anyone is in opposition to any comprehensive plan amendment, land development code amendment, rezoning, conditional use, or any item where the Planning Commission transmits a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, it's important for you to attend the appropriate county commission meeting. For those of you not familiar with the format of our meetings, we have three sections. We have continuances, and where the staff or the applicant has requested continuance, it's been our custom to approve those requests unless there are extenuating circumstances. We have a consent agenda, and those are the items that we'll read through one at a time, and we've not received any objections or staff requests for other issues, and we will go through those, and as we read them off, if there's something on consent that you'd like to have heard, raise your hand, and we'll pull it off consent, and we'll put it onto the regular items, which is the third section, and those are the items that are planned to be heard today, and by the applicant and by the respondents. Applicants will have 3 minutes to make their presentation, and since we have so many, we'll be paying close attention to the time, and the objectors will have 3 minutes to state their concerns, and then following any presentation of objections or concerns or questions, the applicant will have 5 minutes to respond. There's been a request for extra time, at least 24 hours prior to this meeting in writing. Such extra time may be granted, and I think we do have a few of those.
Mr. Chair, we do have a request for additional time from Mr. Mark Jeske. That's for 5 minutes. And we do have a request for 15 minutes of time for Clark Hobby's team for item P4, and the other item, they're both for item P4.
Okay, and I think I've already approved those requests. So before we start the regular meeting, we want to open the meeting to anybody that's here to discuss anything that's not on today's agenda. Is there anyone that's here to discuss something that is not on the agenda today? I don't see anybody. All right, so I think we can begin, Denise.
Mr. Chair, Planning Commission members, Denise Hernandez, Planning and Development. We're going to start with item PC1, PDD 220188, which is a continuance request. It's for an appeal for Loman Links, Inc. The request is to continue the item to the May 19th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting at 1:30 in Newport Richey.
All right. Is that the only continued item?
That is accurate, yes.
Okay. So do I have a motion?
Move to continue to May 19th, 2022.
And we have a second? I think we have a second.
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion of the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The motion carries.
We can't hear that.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Yes. Can you turn it up a bit? Testing, can you hear me better now? Yeah. Okay. I can't get it any closer to me, so. Anyway, okay.
So the
Just-
following item,
Just let me know if you can't hear. Okay? Go
item
ahead.
PC2 is PDD 227602. This is a zoning amendment for One Lakuchi Center, Inc., WREC property, EDC project. It's for a change in zoning from AC, agricultural, R3, medium-density residential, R4, high-density residential, MF1, multiple family, medium density, and C1 neighborhood commercial districts to an I1 light industrial park district. Comes to you with a recommendation of approval, and this is a staff-initiated rezoning.
All right. Is there anyone here to object? I see no objections.
And we don't have anyone signed up to speak on the item.
Okay. Excuse me?
Did you move past the first item?
Yes, sir.
No one back here could hear what y'all were doing.
Well, when I began the meeting, I said, can you all hear me back there? And nobody said a word, so. I figured I was home free.
Denise,
Yes.
can you repeat to do the first item again?
Absolutely, sure. I'm going to start
Yeah.
back on PC1, and that's
Going to be an extra charge for that, though.
That's PDD 220188. It's for Loman Links. It's a continuance request on an appeal, and the request is to continue the item to the May 19th, 2022, 1:30 PM, Newport Richey Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, so we had a request for a continuance, and we had a motion, I think.
And Denise, this was on the agenda as a
This
continuance.
was on the agenda as a continuance item, yes.
Then you do not have to take public comment on this item, Mr. Chair.
Right, okay, thank you. Just for clarification, we continued this item until May 19th. Is that Dade City or
It's
here?
going to be here in Newport Richey.
Here in
at
Newport
1:30.
Richey. So anybody that's interested in that, if you'll come back on May the 19th, it's been continued until that date. Okay?
Good.
Okay, we lost all the golfers.
I didn't have anyone to speak on the item. There's no one signed up for that item,
Okay.
just to mention that.
That's okay. All right, so we covered PC2. I think, did we have a motion?
Yes.
Did we have a motion and a second?
No, we didn't have.
No, not on PC2.
Okay,
You were about to go to public comment.
okay, yeah, it's staff initiated, right? So we didn't have any public comment, nobody?
You don't have anyone.
Registered to speak.
The applicant
Right.
is, we're-
I'll make a motion to approve PC2.
Wait, but you asked for public comment on
Yeah,
PC2?
I
Okay.
did. I can ask again.
Just to be safe, let's ask
Is there
again.
any public comment on PC2? I see no one. You can object to anything you want.
I'll be glad to object to it. Is that the Loman project, right?
no, sir.
No.
It's an item in
No.
Lakuchi. It's on the northwest.
No, I'm not going to go over that one again. That's Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve PC2.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a second. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay. You have the floor.
Good afternoon. This is item P3. Doreen Roy, Long Range Planning.
Okay, Doreen, go right ahead.
There we go. Agenda item CPAS 22-06, Stillwell Pasco Station. PDD 22-0224, Small Scale Comprehensive Plan Amendment, Stillwell Pasco Station. Ooh, can I go back? The property is located in the South Market area, Urban Concentration Service Area. A little bit. Okay. The proposal is amend the future land use flu maps 2-15 and sheet 14 from Res 3, residential 3, dwelling units per gross acre, and ROR retail office residential to Res 12, residential 12, dwelling units per gross acre. The location's at southeast corner of the intersection of SR 52 and Old Pasco Road. Resolution, amend future land use, flu maps 2-15 and sheet 14 from Res 3, residential 3, and ROR retail office residential to Res 12, residential 12. A rezoning petition will follow the small-scale comprehensive plan amendment, amending the zoning from AC and AR to MPUD. The following policies are consistent with the proposed comprehensive plan amendment. Flu 1.10.3, residential compatibility transition. Flu 1.4.3, transitional land use. Flu 8.1.2, South Market area establishment. And Flu 9.1.9, urban service expansion area. This is an aerial of the location at the corner of 52 and Old Pasco Road. Location, existing future land use, Res 3,
Doreen,
and ROR.
Can you stop right there, because I have a question that relates to this map. So the ROR that's at that northwest corner of the property, I understand why the landowner's changing from Res 3 to Res 12 to get more density, but I'm not understanding the purpose of changing the ROR piece, because ROR already allows residential, I think, at a fairly high density. So what is the intent of the change, of the ROR change?
Well, we are increasing the density for this area and being a transitional.
Right, but ROR already allows residential at a fairly high density. So what's the purpose of that change?
Oh, we can't hear you, Terry. There you go. Better come up. I don't want you to have to do it all over again.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Nectaris Pitos, Planning and Development Department. I think the applicant could probably speak to the logistics of their application for why that's changing, but the uniformity and the flu would be the main reason that I see for why we would change this 1.85 acre parcel from ROR to the.
So Terry, my
rest of it.
concern isn't so much about this parcel. My concern is that the property to the north, I really think needs to remain as either retail or office. I mean, it's a key corner at Old Pasco and State Road 52. By removing this piece from the district, I think that allows the applicant to the property owner to the north to say they get residential too, because it's ROR. So if you left this little piece in the ROR district, I think staff could take the position that that is the residential component of the ROR, and that the property owner to the north should only get retail and office. My concern isn't so much about this property, because if it became residential, I don't think that's the end of the world. It's that I'm concerned about now the property owner to the north being able to say, now that this property's been excluded from the ROR district, that they get their own residential to the north, which I think that would be a mistake for that corner to become residential.
I understand. Generally, the ROR is looked at from an area-wide basis, so we could run the analysis to determine.
Well, I agree with you, but now you're taking this property out of the ROR. That's the concern. If it was in the ROR, I'd see how you could, you're hitting on my very concern, which is if it was in the ROR, I think we could say it is the residential component of this ROR district. When it's out of the ROR, I'm worried that the property owner in the north is going to say, I get my own residential now. Do you understand the concern?
I'll let Barbara.
Barbara Wilhite, 6327 Grand Boulevard, Newport Richey, 34652. I'm trying to get staff to pull up for you the zoning map. The property, my recollection is the property to the north is already zoned C2. So they've already went through that zoning action. So they would have to try to convert commercial to something else. And so because of that, the small size, and this is not zoned agriculture. So I think between that distinction between this one not being zoned, it's agriculture, but that already being zoned, I think, and it being the small acreage, and that we would like to see a consistent land uses, that's why we approached it that way. But I do understand your general.
Well, I guess, let me just ask you, Barbara, since staff didn't really answer my question directly. Why not just leave it ROR if it allows residential anyway at a high density?
I think it was, from our perspective, to have the same land use over our project made it so we wouldn't have issues in the future about blending densities or whatever may come up going between ROR and res, and so we wanted to just have a consistent land use. That's why we approached it that way. And we certainly are complementing, we recognize the ROR and the C2 to the north, and we agree that that's important, and that we actually complement that in having that transition of land uses from the commercial to our project to the single-family detached.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out, I'm looking for, I don't want to see the property to the north become residential. And I'm trying to figure out how we avoid that, because ROR allows residential. That's my concern.
But it's zoned C2. And you guys watch that like a hawk. At least now.
Today.
Well,
if it wasn't zoned, I would share that concern, but it is zoned, David.
can staff confirm that the entire site to the north is zone C2, please?
Confirmed.
Sorry.
Yeah, it is zone C2.
And I take it that's a different property owner, right, Barbara? I think, I guess I'll be fine as long as maybe we put a finding in this one that even though it's being removed from ROR, that it's effectively serving as the need for this quadrant of the intersection, so that the property owner to the north doesn't try to come in with a rezoning and say, it's ROR, I get my own residential too. To me, if we're allowing this to go residential, it should be the residential for this corner and not, I don't want the property owner to the north to come and say they get their own residential. I mean, in a perfect world, you all would just change that land use to the north to COM, and then I wouldn't have this concern at all.
Well, it would kind of be the same scenario. COM would enable C2.
I understand that but ROR allows residential, that's my concern. If the property to the north was COM, I wouldn't have even said a word, okay, but it's ROR.
I understand, but the ComFlu isn't 100% non-residential. It does have residential capability.
Well, it's the amount you can do, we changed the code, the amount of residential you can do, and unless it's vertically integrated mixed use, so you can't do residential in COM. So if it was COM, I'd be thrilled. I wouldn't even have this concern at all. I wouldn't even have said it. You would have, I would have stopped it when you started talking.
So we can amend our application to include the application documents, because that's all I can control is the application documents, to include a discussion of why we were ROR and going to Res 12 and what's around it. And then staff can include an appropriate, in their staff report, can include appropriate discussion, if that's the pleasure of the
I mean, I
planning
think there
commission
should
at
be
this
a clear finding that staff does not support residential on the property to the north, and that even though this is being removed from the ROR, that it's still effectively functioning as the residential for this corner. So that we don't get somebody coming in north of this saying, I get my own residential.
Well, how many units do they get on in the ROR, residential units?
Well, how many units per acre does ROR allow?
24.
I mean, it would clearly allow the level of density they want. I mean, that's why it started the conversation of
Yeah.
why bother even changing the ROR, because it allows density far in excess of Res 12.
I guess my one concern or question would be, let's say we do that. We leave that 1.85 acres as ROR. And then the owner to the north comes in with a development who meets the ROR criteria and the C2 criteria and develops by right. How would we
But
stop that?
but then you could say, staff could say, but the ROR already has a residential component, which is this piece, the 1.5 acres is the residential component of the ROR, therefore they're not entitled to their own residential.
Well, I think we can run an analysis on that. If we could put the flu map back up. We could run an analysis on the flu itself as the geometry of that flu as the district, and identify where the residential is in that flu, and maybe put a cap on it based on the overall flu.
I mean, if there's some way
Residential
that you all
capacity.
can document
Yeah.
that we're not giving additional residential to that property owner to the north, because there's already adequate residential in this ROR district, including the area we're about to change right now,
Right.
then I don't have an issue. Or just change the property owner to the north to COM, well, I'd be okay with that too.
Yeah.
But the problem with the ROR district is it allows all three.
Right.
And so you're now removing a part that could have been the residential component of it. That's the concern.
I understand. Yeah.
I just think it would be a mistake to take that key corner of 52 and Old Pasco Road and make it residential.
So on the overhead, you'll that. Does this work like this? Where is it? It's got to work at some point. There it is. It's coming. Okay, so this residential, or this red that spans across Old Pasco Road and goes all the way to the edge, all that is one flu district. And there is on the east or west side of Old Pasco residential there already. So even if this parcel, this little piece gets carved out, what's on the west side of the road is part of that ROR district already. It's part of the same geometric district on our maps.
And
that's all
it
residential
has
already.
homes in there?
And it's already developing as residential. So, I mean, I think that might help answer the concern that you're having about the one little piece coming out, because what's
I
on
mean,
the west side is
I-
still connected to the east side.
Terry, I guess if I knew you were going to be here for the next 30 years, for sure, I wouldn't have this concern, but because then you could say, it's my position, there's adequate residential in this area, that shouldn't become residential. But I'm worried about 10 years from now, there's some staff person that just says ROR, residential is allowed. They change it, they want to change it to multifamily, and now they say approved.
Yeah, I agree. We can clarify it and have a finding established in this project that identifies the portions on the north, or I guess that would be the southeast corner of that intersection, to be retail only, because there's
Or
only
retail or
residential
office.
steps. Retail or office, yeah.
And that
Okay.
the little corner here then satisfies the residential component for that whole corner.
Yeah, we can do it both ways. We can satisfy the residential component and then also reference what's on the west side of the road.
Gotcha.
I think that achieves the result of
Mhm.
preserving the retail office potential for the southwest corner or southeast corner.
Okay. What do you think?
And the only thing I would ask then is you also put somewhere the findings of this application, you put it in your file for whatever you have, file you have for the northern property, you put it in that file, so it gets caught.
Well, if I could just answer David. We can put a note in GIS, so.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, this is Clark Hobby and Hobby PA 109 North Brush Street, have been sworn. I'm not here today actually representing the property owner, but I am working with the property owner to the north, and we don't care what Barbara does with her project, and I'm not aware that we're trying to seek a change from the ROR and C2 zoning there, but I think it's really inappropriate for the county to be effectively trying to impose conditions on their property when their property wasn't the subject of today's application. I understand what David's saying, but there are rules in the comp plan about how you determine the range of uses within ROR, and I think what needs to happen here is the staff just needs to implement the comp plan the way they would on any other one. So for instance, I believe this original ROR area maybe had about 200 acres in it or so, and there's a list of the 3 uses that can occur there, and you have to follow the percentages within those areas. And I don't know why staff isn't just doing that the way they normally would. But as I said, I'm not actually here representing the Cruzans. Didn't even know this was coming up, but I don't think it's fair to them.
But Clark, the origin of this issue is that they're removing land from the ROR, which now affects those percentages. That's the issue.
But-
If the land was staying ROR, I don't think I would have said a word.
No, I understand, and again, feel free to do whatever you want to with Barbara's application. We don't care. We're fine with whatever they want to do. All I'm saying is I don't think you can start effectively adding conditions to our site without them even having noticed that effectively what you're saying is their comp plan is being changed or conditioned somehow today, and they had no knowledge of it. So I think it's unfair. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I get what you're saying, David, and either way you do it, there is land that's coming out of the ROR area that could have been residential because there's a cap, and I can't remember if it's 75% that can be residential within ROR. And again, I'm not saying the Cruzans are seeking any changes on their property. I'm not aware of it, but I think they'd be kind of miffed if they found out that there was someone else's comp plan change that didn't purport to change theirs, that conditions were being added for it. So if you can find some way to achieve your goal without,
I mean, the simplest way would just be to leave the current one ROR, then I wouldn't have my concern.
well, again, I'll leave that to Barbara. I don't know what her issues are there.
But Barbara, I don't I mean, given this issue, what is the harm to you with it staying ROR if you get the density you want anyway?
Then I have to go back,
What?
re-advertise. I don't think they can make that kind of change to the land use
It's a
map.
lesser, you're, I don't know that you have to re-advertise because you're,
Not making a change.
we're just not making that change. We're just excluding it
As long
from
as
the
I don't have to
change.
start over, I
don't think you have to
matters.
start over.
As long as there's no issue with my MPUD and blending densities and confirm it doesn't
I
change
guess
anything.
I don't know how it would, I mean, I guess I'll ask Terry. I mean, typically we allow people to blend their densities in an MPD, right?
Right. I needed transparency through what the zoning map. I'm sorry, what the question was, can we
Would
blend
we,
density?
so if that little piece stays ROR, would we allow them to use the residential density that would be allowed on that little piece over their whole MPUD?
I believe so, yeah. You can, because it allows the blending of density as an MPUD.
Actually, it allows more density than Res 12, right?
Right. Well, yeah, because it would enable 24 for that 1.85, and then you blend that as a percentage.
Seems like it would be an advantage to just leave it the way it is.
May I answer the question?
Yes,
You
Denise.
can blend densities in an MPUD, absolutely.
So I'm fine if we want to change that, as long as it doesn't, I don't have to do anything. As long as it doesn't change my transportation analysis, I don't have to do anything, other than staff change the maps.
mean, you're
It doesn't affect
actually-
my advertising.
You're leaving it the way it is, so I don't know how that would require you to re-advertise something.
I might have the answer now. So if we look at the overhead, zoom out a little bit.
I thought we just had the.
And then if you make the future land use layer transparent and turn the zoning on. We just did a real quick analysis of what's commercially entitled with C2 zoning, and that amounts to about 28% of that flu. So they're within range now of, that means the rest of that ROR is residential in scope and in purpose, which means that they're within range of the ROR proportions. That would mean that that flu district the remaining properties would have to be retail office if we follow that analysis. Now, we can refine that and get
I
more
understand
granular.
what you're saying, but you're still removing land, this potentially is removing land from the district. It would be part of that equation. That's my point.
Right, but it's 1 acre, and they're actually at 29%, 28 plus change. So that means they're a little bit over on residential within this district. So it's probably around 76% right now in the district. So you can afford to lose an acre plus and not change much of the equation.
Well, Barbara's already agreed, though. to
I'm
leave it
still
like
not
it
sure
is.
how I mean, I'm also a little concerned about the precedent of converting something that's an employment generating use to a residential use, but I can live with that. I mean, well, I really can't live with it. I mean, if she can get the density she wants under ROR, I don't know why we're going through all that headache.
So I guess there's two ways to go. One is leave the ROR, or the analysis he just told you, he can include in the findings of fact, because that is their analysis. So either way.
Yeah, but apparently Clark doesn't want them using that analysis on his property, so.
This planning commission gets to decide their recommendation on
Well,
that.
but anyway, it's up to the planning commission what you want to do with it, but I think she can get the density she wants with ROR, so.
Yeah, to me, that seems like the simple way to go.
She gets more density with ROR.
No, we'll include it in staff.
And as Barbara said, as long as she doesn't have to reintroduce it, re-advertise it, you know, that's the main, I think that's the main concern.
Yes.
So,
But you have not taken public comment yet, so I didn't want you to not take public comment.
all right, so is there anybody in the audience?
Did staff finish the presentation? Staff
I
still has to finish the presentation, right?
Yeah, sorry, I guess I interrupted her there.
We got sidetracked, sorry about that.
Okay, so the proposed future land use, Res 12, with a density cap not to exceed 10 dwelling units per gross acre. The zoning existing is AC and AR. And this is the applicant's conceptual. Recommend that the local planning agency find the proposed amendment consistent with the comprehensive plan and recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners. Alternative motion 1, recommend denial to the Board of County Commissioners of the proposed comprehensive plan amendment CPAS 22-06, Stillwell Pasco Station, or alternative motion 2, direct the Planning and Development Department to an alternative course of action.
All right, do I have any public comment? Any questions from the public? Anybody online, Denise?
Mr. Chair, we do have, it's not specifically for this item, I'm not sure, we do have 2 folks that are online, that we're not sure what item they're on for. Do you want me to call out those folks?
Well, Denise, this was on regular because, did we get some opposition? Is that why it was on regular?
It's on regular, I believe, because it's a multifamily component to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't know if these people registered in opposition to this in particular.
No one has registered for this one specifically, but I have 2 people that are online that I cannot attach them to an item, so I don't know what they're on for.
I guess we need to ask them. Right.
Well, yeah, can we find out?
So the first person that we have on is Zachary DeGregorio. Mr. DeGregorio, what item are you here to speak on? Mr. DeGregorio has been promoted. Mr. DeGregorio, can you hear us? What item are you here to speak on?
I'm not here to speak, I'm just listening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
So the other person that we're not sure what item this person is here for is, it looks like that person has dropped off. No, actually it's John Keropolis. Can we promote that person?
I can speak on behalf of John, he's also just here listening.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so
Thank you.
that solves that.
What's he here to speak on, though?
Sounds like they were here just.
He's not here to speak on anything.
Oh,
We're just
okay.
attending to observe.
Okay.
Thank you. Mystery has been solved.
All right, and I don't think we.
There's no one here to speak
Yeah.
on the item online.
I don't.
I think you should let Barbara, and she answered the question, but she may have a presentation. I don't know. We should let her speak if she does.
Barbara Wilhite again. I didn't have a specific presentation because it was on regular, But if you have any questions, I have my client here. But thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Any questions?
And we're fine with the revision to just keep the ROR and change the rest of Res 12.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. All right. So I think we have the presentation. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve removing the existing section that's has a future land use of ROR from the land use amendment.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Have a second? A motion and a second. Any further discussion of the motion? If not, I'll signify by saying aye. If you're in
Aye.
favor. Or if you're opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay. All right.
Are we on P4?
All righty.
Good afternoon, Amy Heiler with Long Range Planning. The item today you'll be hearing is the MPUD for Newport Corners. It is a rezoning petition in the name of PDD 22-7598. The subject property is located within Commissioner District 4. It is also within the Central and Spring districts of the West Market area. It's located at the northeast corner of Little Road and Decubulus, north of Plath Road along the Little Road corridor. The applicant is proposing a rezoning petition from AC Agricultural District and AR Agricultural Residential District to MPUD Master Plan Unit Development to allow for a mixed-use development of residential, non-residential, and community-scaled uses, including retail, office, light industry, and other employment-generating uses. The intent of the proposed development is to act as a companion downtown to the city of Newport Richey through a series of well-connected street networks, trails, land uses, and open spaces designed to complement and serve the surrounding community. Oh, sorry, I forgot to let you guys know. Before we get started, there was some ex parte forms that I submitted to the clerk's office, so I just wanted to let you know that as well.
Okay.
I
Can we get
apologize
a
for not
motion?
doing that at
Can we get a
first.
motion to receive and file the ex parte forms?
Go ahead.
Move to receive and file.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay, so.
Just so we're clear, can you at least say who the ex parte meetings were with the form? Who those ex parte meetings were with?
Who they were from?
Yeah.
There were about 9 of them, so I can reach out. real
Was it
quick
with
and find-
everybody on the planning commission?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, was it the
Additionally-
applicant meeting with everybody on the planning commission?
Yes,
Okay, that's good enough.
thank you.
And I know I met with someone that were not on the planning commission, so
Right.
I think we've got those two.
Yep, thank you. Okay, so to continue on, so with the applicant's request, the intent of Newport Corners of this development is to act as a companion downtown to the city of Newport Richey through a series of well-connected street networks, trails, land uses, and open spaces. As of January 2020, we have actually been in conversations and negotiations with the developer and the applicant on Newport Corners. We also, you have heard the comprehensive plan amendment that's currently at the state right now through review. So between that time and now, we've been negotiating land uses, connectivity, placements, designs in the sub-area policy, as well as the MPD conditions of approval. And to ensure what some of the negotiations that we went through were to ensure that the original intent of Newport Corners was achieved, as well as maintained a balance of non-residential and residential uses within the Newport Corners area. So just to give you guys a little history background of Newport Corners. So on August 10th, 2010, the Board of County Commissioners approved a reclassification of Newport Corners. At that point in time, the reclassification was amending the comprehensive plan's future land use from a series of higher density residential future land uses to Newport Corners FLU classification. At that point in time, the approved entitlements for Newport Corners considered the existing, density set by those established residential land uses at that time. And the only change then was just an increase in intensity. So back in 2010, the approved entitlements for Newport Corners were 3,397 dwelling units, as well as 4.8 million square feet of non-residential uses. So as it sits now, that's what's currently approved. On December 9th, 2021, okay, so here's your visual of what the future land use now looks like as it is existing. And so on December 9th, 2021, as I stated before, the comprehensive plan amendment was presented to the local planning agency for review. The comprehensive plan amendment was a text amendment to the existing future land use classification. The proposed amendment increased the residential density by 3 units, so it went from 3,397 units to a flat 3,400 units. Dwelling units. It reduced the non-residential entitlements from 4.8 million square feet to 1.4 million square feet of retail, office, light industry, and target industry. It also reestablished the 3 village categories, being the Northeast Village, the Village Center, and the Neighborhood General. And then we also created a connectivity plan as a guiding planning tool for this area to ensure that the Newport Corners was developed in a well-connected and cohesive manner. So on January 25th, at that public hearing in December, we approved the comprehensive plan to the Board of County Commissioners on January 25th. The Board of County Commissioners approved the comprehensive plan amendment to DEO. DEO is currently reviewing it, and we have not received any comments or any concerns from state or federal agencies as of now. And on April 19th, the comprehensive plan amendment as well as the rezoning petition is scheduled for adoption. So the proposed amendment as well as the accompanying rezoning petition are currently scheduled for the April 19th public hearing. So here is the amended map 2-9. So this is going to be embedded within the comprehensive plan. And this area shows your visual. So this is going to be your sub-area map identifying the Village Center, Village General, and Village Northeast Village for Newport Corners. So this is going to delineate the geography and the area for those specific uses. In the current or in the proposed MPUD, these are going to be your entitlements that we have approved alongside the sub-area policy. And so within the MPUD conditions of approval, we have allowed for the following entitlements: 1,825 single-family, 400 townhomes, 700 multifamily, and 475 age-restricted dwelling units. And then the non-residential uses are set forth as 350,000 square feet of retail and 1,050,000 square feet of office target industry and light industry. And so just to give you a perspective, so the purple area being the Northeast Village, the purple area is going to have up to 300 single-family attached, 700 single-family detached, 100,000 square feet of retail, and 300,000 square feet of target industry and light industry in that area. The yellow area is going to be your neighborhood general, which is permitting up to 400 single-family attached, 1,125 single-family detached, and 475 age-restricted units. And then the village core being your red area, that is going to permit up to 400 multifamily units, 250,000 square foot of retail, and 750,000 square feet of office target industry. And those were your entitlements. And so, as I stated before, we also established the use of a connectivity plan as our planning tool for this area. So as you can see, this is a conceptual plan that delineates single-family attached, single-family detached, our village center, parks and open spaces, trails, and the Northeast Village. So to go through a little bit of what's going to be planned in the connectivity plan, the Northeast Village is to allow for multifamily units, as well as single-family detached and attached, civic, public, semi-public, and employment-generating uses. Through the last 2 years, we have done negotiations with the applicant and the developer. So within the Northeast Village, we are prioritizing the employment-generating uses. We have established setbacks and specific locations for the residential components, so they do not impact the non-residential uses and allows for enough land to prioritize employment-generating uses in this area. We've also been in negotiations with Parks, Recs, and Natural Resources to establish a potential site for an urban rec center in this area. As it relates to the Magnolia Valley Park, District Park, we are working with Parks and Rec as well as the developer and the property owners to ensure that this area is provided enough park space to meet the level of service for a district park. If Magnolia Valley does not have the opportunity to achieve that. And so by establishing this land or setting this land aside for an urban recreational center in this area, Parks and Rec has agreed to, and the applicant has agreed to reserve up to 10 acres in this area of upland acres for a potential recreational center for a period of 2 years to determine whether or not the county actually needs it or not. And then there's also been negotiations in this area with the Office of Economic Development, as previously stated. The original intent of Newport Corners was to preserve the employment-generating uses in this area. And so through negotiations with Office of Economic Development, we have maintained the intent of this area to preserve the employment-generating uses as it relates to the employment center that's to the north, so this government center, as well as established a flex site for light industry, target industry uses in this area. So the flex site will be no less than 300,000 square feet of potential office target industry in this area. Oh, okay, sorry, confusion. Neighborhood general, so we'll go into a little bit of neighborhood general. This is where your residential uses are going to be located. As you can see, the yellow area is going to be your single-family detached. The orange area is your single-family attached. Here we go. The orange area you'll see around here is like your single-family attached. We also have it, if you see the red area being your village core, we have established a linear park along the proposed or potential Vision Road U. As it relates to the Vision Park, which is going to be along your river system, and that's where your alley-loaded product, being your single-family attached and single-family detached, are going to be located. And then the village center, we've also worked diligently to ensure that the village center is developed in a way that it complements the downtown of Newport Richey. So the intent of the village center is to achieve that downtown feel. You're going to have your mostly non-residential uses, vertically integrated opportunities with multifamily and your ground floor non-residential uses. We've also established frontage guidelines. In this area, we've actually been able to, in the comprehensive plan, allow for the design setback, extra provisions to ensure that this area is developed in a way that meets the intent of a downtown rather than, just your out parcels or whatnot for commercialized development. We've also negotiated the uses in here as being C2, C3, C1, C2, C3 uses, but we've prohibited uses such as auto-oriented, car washes, any maintenance work, stuff like that, retail along those lines. So the idea is to ensure that you'll have your retail, office, restaurants in this type of location. And then as stated, additionally to the connectivity plan, we have our pedestrians, parks, and trails. So this is going to be the visual in the connectivity plan that identifies your Riverside Trail, your nature trail, neighborhood trail, multi-use trails. So throughout Newport Corners, we've established a well-connected series of multi-use trail systems. So you can actually, the intent is to not be auto-centric, so you don't have to get into your car at that point in time. You can actually utilize the trails to walk between uses, as well as there is a potential for a trail connection along Keropolis to Newport Richey, which will further solidify the connection between the two downtown areas.
Can I interrupt for a question then?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So can you confirm, and I don't recall, is there currently a sidewalk along Plath between Little and?
No.
Okay, and so is that planned here?
Yes.
It looks like there is one, but I just want to confirm that.
Yeah, it's a multi-use path, 12 feet. And so the multi-use paths can also be used for golf cart access.
Right.
So the multi-use path is going to be along Plath, and I'll go to this one. So you see the purple, the orange area. I wish this was like the red little, not the mouse,
Right.
but the red. So the orange is going to be your Plath realignment. So we're realigning Plath up to Keropolis. That is going to have the multi-use trail along Plath Road as well as Vision Road U. Because we've had some discussions with the community to the west of Osteen who wanted to have access to the downtown center via golf cart. So we've made sure that we allocated the multi-use trail along Vision Road U and then up through Plath Road to allow for that golf cart access.
Will the trail be, I'm just asking to make sure that students who would be zoned here to Cody River Elementary would have, will that be completed down to that school, or does this contemplate that?
That I'm not sure, and I can ask the,
Maybe Mr. Hobby can answer that
yeah, he can
one in
probably
terms
answer
of-
that one.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And they also have a presentation for you guys as
Okay,
well,
good.
so. So, and then this is going to be your master plan that basically encompasses everything that I just described. So with that, we recommend approval of the master plan unit development rezoning request to the BCC, subject to the conditions of approval. And if you have any additional questions, I can be happy to answer them.
Amy, did you say at one point that you're going to have some degree of architectural control over the
Correct.
housing and things that are
Yep,
built in there?
those conditions are set forth in the comprehensive plan.
All right.
And it.
There's a
I don't
zoning
remember the name of
condition
it.
also, there's a zoning condition that requires
Mhm.
architectural features. I think it's condition
The
50.
frontage guidelines.
Well, no, I think the chairman's asking about condition 54.
Mhm.
54 has architectural design standards in it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, as I had made clear to the, one of the representatives for the developer that, I want to make sure that this is a big piece of property. We want to make sure it's done right. And I know that you all have been working on it for a long time. I know that Mr. Hobby, who's from here, has put a lot of time into it. I'm from here. I don't want to drive by a development like this and be disappointed. And I don't want my friends and neighbors to be disappointed. So this is very important to us. And so we want to make sure that we stay on top of this and we get what we think we're getting. And what I don't want to see is for a developer to go in there and just bulldoze a bunch of trees and build a bunch of cracker boxes and leave. And so it's really important, and I think, I don't know, I haven't talked to the board members, but I'm sure they're going to feel the same. So,
Agreed.
Well, I mean, the planning commission may want to review condition 54 to see if that sufficiently addresses your concern, because that's, I think, the condition that staff imposed to attempt to address your concern.
okay. You have that, Jamie?
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy. Nice job.
Yeah, the pointer. So if I might get my plan up, this is Clark Hobby for the record, if I can get my PowerPoint up. Pardon me, Mr. Chairman, while we wait, I'll go ahead and introduce Clark Hobby again. I'm with the applicant, representing the applicant, and we have with us today a whole bunch of folks from Lennar Homes. We have several professionals from Clearview Land Design, including the project's landscape architect, civil engineer, as well as the chief planner for the project. We can answer any questions you may have. I'm just going to flip you a few things here which may be helpful for various members of the public. This is a critical infill project, and everybody on our team has been made well aware of that for over 2 years. This is a project we've got to get right. It's critical to West Pasco, and we know that. We're at Main and Main, and we have to put our best foot forward, and that's been my admonition to our entire team since we first started meeting on this in very late 2019. Just wanted to provide a little bit of history for the benefit of our friends and neighbors here. So this is an aerial view of the Plath and Little area. Hopefully I'm coming through here. Here we go. You can see where, this is where Little Road ended up being constructed and where the bridge was put in. In 1974, Little Road and the bridge did not exist. And as a result of that, and the fact that there were no other crossings of the river from downtown all the way east out here, very little was developed in this area at all. All of the lot lines you see here where River Ridge and all of our other wonderful communities have been built over the years did not exist. And in my mind, the construction of Little Road and the bridge over Little Road was the single most important thing that's occurred in West Pasco since the construction of US 19. It has spurred economic growth, residential growth substantially since the bridge and the road were built in the late 80s. Believe it or not, for many of our friends here, it still did not exist as of the early 80s. Why do I bring that up? The article you see here is an article that quotes the then chairman of the county commission, Mike Olson, talking about how Little Road and the county's plans for Little Road and the bridge over Little Road could not have occurred but for the family that still owns the property today and who bought it originally for Orange Groves, gave the right-of-way for Little Road. So, but for that gift, and if you read this article, he says basically the county couldn't afford to do the Little Road project. As a result of all that, you see the build-out of virtually everything from 54 all the way up to 19. Previously, most of the development from 19 was within about a quarter or half mile of it, and everything from that area on through and all the way over to where we know the edge of development at the now Ridge Road extension has occurred as a result of Little Road. So it's been a major driver in the area. And the reason why I say that is we've all enjoyed the wonderful view of this property for years. It's great to have pine trees. As a kid, it was more important to me to see the orange groves. I love the orange groves, prefer them to pine. But there's a time and a place for everything. And this site's been planned for major development for many, many years, as I'll explain. And we're at the right time, the right place. We have the right team and the right plan for this site. I would just point out to our friends in the community, the last two comprehensive plan cycles that analyzed the entirety of the plan in all of the county had either Res 3, Res 6, or Res 9 on all of this property. And the residential component of this development are virtually unchanged since at least the late 1990s. So it was always planned for a lot of residential units, and that's what's built out around us to the south primarily. What happened and what Amy was talking about earlier that made this site different was the county, I think rightly, decided in 2010 that just having a sea of residential units wasn't enough. And we needed to do something different. And what we didn't need to do is have strip commercial all the way from Keropolis all the way down to the river. What we needed to do is build a sense of place built around discrete commercial corners. And that's what you're seeing on these four corners here. If I could find my, there we go. These four corners are only 12.5 acres apiece. So they're not large enough for big box retailers that we've seen at the other corners at Ridge and going further up Little. It's not going to be like that. This is going to be neighborhood serving commercial that will allow us to try to build a real downtown around our community. And everything in our team's focus has been to make those two uses be mutually supportive of one another to create a sense of place. And that's really what the comp plan policies for this are all about. You all are undoubtedly aware that the Harbors Plan was adopted in 2013, and it further refined what the vision for the area was. And basically, the upshot of it is everything that we would all want. Sense of place, walkability, parks, open spaces, the things that make real communities last for generations. And that's what this plan's built around. So you saw the master plan earlier. My client, Lennar Homes, is going to be building the residential component that lies south of Keropolis. The current landowner, the Harvey family's entity, will own the four corners for the future, for right now, and own the Northeast Village. You heard a pretty long discussion about what those include, but I'll just point out a couple of other things in a little greater detail. The village center area itself already has in these MPUD conditions, and gosh, I cannot see, here we go, we're way over here, this thing's so slow. The plan here is to focus everything around this beautiful linear park and walkable area called Vision Road U. So there are MPUD conditions that require the buildings along there to face the road. And then within the residential areas that abut it, and I'll get to this in a minute, I'll go ahead and flip to that now. You're seeing areas, all the cross-hatching, and again, come on, my little guy. Come on, it's so slow. Here we go. All of these areas in an unprecedented move and commitment by Lennar, all of these units are all alley-loaded product. The reason why we're doing that is we're trying to create the sense of community, the traditional neighborhood feel, where people are looking over their downtown, and the downtown's all focused on this linear greenway that's going to run all the way from the middle of, or from the western edge of the village center, all the way into the park system that you see listed as Vision Park on here, which again, sorry for the delay here, it just takes a long time for the pointer to come in, so I'll just go to the next slide. Again, a lot of pedestrian connectivity, lots of multi-use paths, all of the sites interconnected. And to Mr. Williams' question, we were not going to build a multi-use path down Plath, but if you look at the connectivity plan, we bring our main east-west road that has a multi-use path, and then there'll be a path that goes all the way through our westernmost phase of development. So if there are students down there, they would just cut up through those paths to the center.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yes, go
Back
ahead.
up. So, yeah, but they, because Cody River is just to the west of that. So where are you saying? I'm sorry, Clark.
It's okay. And again, I'm just hoping I can get the pointer to come along with me. Is it on here? I don't see it. There we go. There we go.
Yeah, it butts up against.
See
it,
this
and
right
that's-
here? So there's a multi-use path cutting all the way through here, Chris.
Yes.
So then they would be able to walk all the way through the community from there. It just won't be built along the Plath Road from the intersection at Little to that point.
So I guess that may be a question for staff, is when do we think there might be a path from here to the school entrance?
What is that distance? Does anybody know?
It's not very far, but let me try to measure that real quick.
It might be better, Chris, how about I do this? Because once I sit down and we have public comment, let me try to get some of those answers. I think I can give you
That's
better
fine.
info if I do that from our team. Again, we're trying to create unique open spaces and unique places that'll build a community. Some of the concepts you see in the northwest corner of the slide show you what the multi-use paths are intended to look like. In the northeast corner, we are going to have special decorative pavers that go out in little roads, so we not only create a place that pedestrians will like to cross, but it will visually create a safety visual look for drivers so they know to slow down. We will be installing, and this is all part of our first phase, pedestrian safe zones in the middle, so it's easier for the pedestrians to get across. And then the slides on the bottom, you're looking at the representative views of what our park area is going to look like. That's the focal point of the Vision Road use system. And you can see in the top here on the left, you're seeing what our landscape architect has laid out is this beautiful visual that's running down through the middle of the site. And you can see how both the townhouses and single-family detached units on either side of it are alley-loaded so that they're overlooking this beautiful green space. And then the next page, this is the latest representation of what our park plan is going to look like. The intent is to build a combination of active areas, but all focus around the beautiful tree and forestry that's down in that area, and then have a really nice multi-use path area that goes along the river that starts there and runs up through the site. Just a couple of other things, and I won't belabor them, but we're obviously, the site has planted pines on it, and the pines were planted there as a production crop after the orange groves froze, and they're going to be forested at some point, whether this project happens or not. Having said that, we understand that we have to, as part of creating a community, we don't want to just bulldoze the whole site and not create open and green spaces. So when the site was laid out, this first slide I'm showing to you shows in dark green the wetlands on the site that will not be impacted, which are significant, and then the co-location of green spaces and parks throughout the site that abut them and enlarge them. And then on the next slide, you'll see We've also co-located a lot of ponds in those same areas, and the net effect is, when you look at it all, we've created a lot of open spaces throughout the site. And again, we think that's important as a planning team to create a great community. We don't want to start with just a bulldozed site. The site's too special. Most of these slides you've already been hearing from Amy on, so I don't think I'll really spend any time on that, but I will say just a few other quickie things. You are guided by the comprehensive plan on this. The comprehensive plan tells our team what we have to do and the landowner with the site. The site's not planned for rural, never has been, and we have to build a community on it and focus on issues that ensure compatibility. And that's what our team's been trying to do for over 2 years. Lennar Homes has been leading the project and has given our planning team and design team a free hand to try to create the sense of community. The conditions address a variety of things, from the creation of employment entitlements, employment sites, parks, park sites. We've done a couple of very unique things, and I credit Joel too and his client. They've given unprecedented control to the county staff for the village core area, village center area, where those 4 points are, about the design. The conditions say that the county staff has to approve the building orientation, its facades, signage, architectural, landscaping, and parking in all 4 of those corners. We don't normally do that kind of thing, but the reason why they did it here is they're committed to making sure we create a community and a real sense of place. Just a couple of other quick things, and then I'll wrap up. We all know that neighbors are going to be concerned about traffic on a project of this size, even though there's a lot of entitlements already in the comprehensive plan. When we got started, we asked that staff work with us to do 2 major things on traffic. Number one, the site had a series of on-site collector roads at very wide widths that would have made it very difficult to plan a community around and to have pedestrian connectivity. And what we did, instead of just having large collector roads, was create a street grid network with smaller gauge roads. Has the same effect, and we're going to have basically 2 parallel systems to Little Road through our site to divert traffic and keep it on there to go up to Keropolis. And then the second thing is, the original comprehensive plan entitlements for Newport Corners were way too high, and were of a regional scale. There was 4.8 million square feet of non-residential entitlements. We took it down to about 1.2, 1.3, but we preserved more than will be sufficient for the employment uses. But what we don't want to do is overwhelm our neighbors. We are resurfacing. When we get to it, we'll be resurfacing the existing section of Osteen Road when we make any connection there. We're obviously aware of the importance of nature and the natural features here. We're respecting the 50-foot setback from the river that's required by the comp plan and the LDC. There'll probably be discussions about schools, and that's obviously addressed by Chris's department, but I would tell the Planning Commission that, we're in discussions, and I think we will probably end up having a charter school of some size in the Northeast Village that I hope will help provide capacity for our students. We will very likely have an active adult or retirement phase in the northwest corner that we feel is a good fit for our neighbors there and won't generate any students. And then before I wrap up, one last thing. We did agree and created a series of monotony controls for our residential products and special landscaping standards that actually, in some cases, exceed what the board is going to adopt next week on landscaping. So there's been a big commitment by Lennar and the landowner for any residential it has to better landscaping than we've been doing on 40s and 50s and townhouses and so forth. And then, again, special monotony controls and architectural features. So, again, we don't want to have very low-level, entry-level product on the field. With that, I just want to thank the county staff who's worked with us for over 2 years on this, particularly Terry and Amy and the transportation staff, because there's a heck of a lot of work that went into this. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody, and thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Clark, Could you do me a favor? Because it was only briefly covered, but in your connectivity plan, could you get somebody to put it back up and then clarify which of those trails and roads are accessible to the public? Because there was a lot of trail, and which ones are available by golf cart, if you could.
Well, and I may call Hannah up here to give us, Hannah McAleer. Hannah, come up here if you would. I believe all of our trails that are shown on here are accessible to the public. The only ones that would not be are in the one potentially gated area that's northwest of the village center. But Hannah, if you want to, this is how you point, if it'll work.
Okay, that's great. Hannah McAleer, Clearview Land Design. To Clark's point, all of them will be open access that are not behind the one gated area. Which one is it, Clark's point?
It's the top. You gotta hold it. There you go.
So the area that is west of Little and north of Vision Road U will be gated. And there aren't really significant trails within there because there aren't a lot of natural features to highlight. So all the other trail systems and sidewalks will be open. Anyone can use them. So the multi-use trails, we have a multi-use trail along the north side of Vision Road U that will be golf cart accessible. And then also we have the multi-use trail along the Plath extension, so from Little Road up to Dusty Lane. We will, that will be a multi-use trail that golf carts can use, and back out to this section of Dusty Lane from Plath to Little Road. And then the river trail we envision being more bicycle pedestrian friendly. We don't propose golf carts on that. And also on top of that, all of our internal roadways are going to be low speed. So they should be golf cart friendly, pending a resolution on that. And also, I did look up, Chris, the distance from the school entry to Little Road is just under a mile at 5,200 feet, give or take, measured it on Google Earth.
So, and yeah, I guess my request would be, if you just work with us, because we're obviously a butt and it might be that maybe it's best to connect that northern where that multi-use trail, yeah, maybe in there, or maybe it's along Plath, but it's just, if you can just work with us on the best, and I don't know what the best connection is going to be for us, but, maybe we can work together, just the best way to get any of those kids who are going to Cody River to be able to walk into the school site.
We can do that.
Okay, that'd be great.
All right.
Happy to answer any other questions, Mr. Chairman.
for
Yeah, I have
Dr.
several. What's the purpose of the golf carts? Is there a golf course in here, or?
No, that's a newer design feature where people are trying to encourage less usage of automobiles, basically. It's a convenience factor for a lot of communities.
Okay. And in your remarks, you said this was, I wrote down 2010 before the Board of County Commissioners. Is that right?
In 2010, that's when the Newport Corners concept was originally created. And then again in 2013, as part of the adoption of the Harbors Plan, there were a whole series of community meetings that further refined the vision for Newport Corners.
And this is 2022. Can I ask, maybe it's a dumb question, why did it take so long?
For whatever reason, the seller's family wasn't interested in selling this property for a long time. I told Mr. Gray sometime that we had other clients that were very interested in buying this as much as 25 years ago and made offers, and the family didn't want to sell.
Okay. And my last question is, it's more of a request. Can we look at long-term care or nursing homes eventually in there? I think this came up several weeks back, and I advocated for something then, and I would hope at some point in time that the market in that particular age range or that particular service may be looked at some point in time.
Absolutely, and Joel just was reminding me that, I knew they were already allowed in the Northeast Village. They're actually allowed in the Four Corners as well, so.
And my last question is, The term employment centers come up often before us, before
Right.
different groups, newspapers, et cetera. Will there actually be some employment in this area? I would hope the answer is definitely
There's a
yes.
commitment in the condition to a 25-acre site, and we've entitled, I believe it's about, I want to say it's about 1 million square feet of employment-generating uses as well.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a related question to that, Clark, and that's the movement from the 4.8 million square feet
Right,
non-residential use to the, what is it, 1.4?
right.
Maybe staff is better served to answer, but what's the logic with that reduction in a space that's
I can,
900 and some?
I can speak to it. When Newport Corners was approved in 2010, at the time, there was a proposed constitutional amendment that was being considered where it would have required a referendum, so-called hometown democracy, for any comp plan changes. And so you would have had a vote by the populace on all of them. And so I think the county and the applicant at the time, in an abundance of caution, were basically way over entitling the property. But the problem I found with it when we started analyzing it, it would have allowed very, very large amounts of non-residential up against the neighborhoods to our west. For instance, you could have had a regional mall there. You could have had millions of square feet of light industrial buildings right up against those neighborhoods, and we didn't feel that was appropriate. There are sufficient commercial and other employment entitlements that we're leaving and entitling through this process that will be more than sufficient for the build-out of appropriately scaled non-residential in this area. It would still be considered very large for this area. It's over 1 million square feet.
Yeah, just looking at it, though, from the perspective of nearly 1,000 acres,
Well, again,
I didn't know the economics of that.
yeah,
either.
the northeast parcel itself is about 200 acres, and almost all of that could end up being employment generating and has a lot of entitlements now. So if there's a will, there will be a way, but there is a commitment at least for 25 acres of that to be employment generating for the time being.
All right, thanks, Clark.
Anything else from up here?
Thank you.
Anything, David? Okay. All right, well, if not, we're going to take a 10-minute recess. Later.
You play golf too, huh?
I did.
All right.
I didn't
I played 12 wins this morning.
Oh.
All right, I think we're going to hear from the public now with comments or concerns, and I think we have somebody on WebEx. We'll hear them first, please.
Mr. Chair, yes, we do have Edward Mulligan on WebEx. Mr. Mulligan, if you would please state your name and address for the record and whether you've been sworn.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Mulligan. Please
Can-
state your name and address for the record and whether you've been sworn.
My name is Edward A. Mulligan, Jr., and my address is 8702 Corinthian Way. And yes, I have been sworn.
Denise, could we also, was he one of the ones that registered or didn't register?
Mr. Mulligan did write.
I'm the one.
Okay, all right, okay.
So,
Okay.
good afternoon, ladies.
You've been sworn, you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Vice President of Lexington Commons HOA, where I am presently at right now, as you can see. So until this project came to light, all 68 owners here had no idea that our little finger development was surrounded on 3 sides by commercial zoning. How this development got into commercial zoning, I guess, is a topic for another time. But as the residents here, we don't condone the project that's going on because, I guess, we're going to lose our beautiful woods and everything that surrounds us. But we understand that progress happens, and if we're gaining 1,000 people a day to Florida, they have to go somewhere. But what we all agree on here is that we would like to see the land around us that directly impacts us on 3 sides to be zoned to have a lesser commercial footprint as proposed by Leonard. Yeah, that's basically how we feel, and you know, I mean, like, happen, but we would love to see a smaller commercial footprint, which is what they're proposing. That
All right. Is that pretty much your main concern?
basically, yeah, our main concern is that, you know, we don't want a car wash coming up right against our property line. We don't want a giant commercial building. You know, I understand that there's need for jobs in the area. There is now, Moffett is going to be creating a large job opportunity at the end of Ridge now that you connected it to the Suncoast. Those people are going to need a place to live. I understand that. But as far as we have an established community here, and to start putting buildings up around us, it just basically would be a sin. I mean, you council members, you know, seem to care about, you know, them coming in and bulldozing everything and making it look like a cookie cutter. I appreciate that. Nobody wants that. And it sounds like Leonard is doing a very good job of their planning, but as far as the way the land is zoned right now, it just doesn't fit the area.
Do we have a map that shows where this gentleman lives? Because I really have no idea.
Thank you. Okay.
The northwest.
We're going to pull up a map,
north-
so we can't see you,
Okay.
but we want to have a visual so everybody can see where you are.
We're just going to change presenters a second, and I'll bring it up.
Okay.
So this here is Lexington Commons here, on the north and south sides of Corinthian Way, on the east side of Little Road.
All right.
For purposes of understanding, this is very close to the government center, very, very nearby. Here's the.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great.
So as you can see, all the wooded area around us.
Yeah.
And, you know, as far as Leonard is concerned, development, housing is ideal for us because, you know, it just helps the value of our community to get better. If you start putting commercial buildings, you know, all that land, it's not.
All right, you're cutting out a bit, so, but I think we got the gist of what your concern is. What, we're making a note, and I'm sure the applicant's making a note, and when he has his opportunity to come back up and answer some of these questions, that's one of the questions he will address. So maybe you can get an answer directly from the, I hate to say the horse's mouth, but, you know, that's what it is.
Well, we're not looking for any answer. I'm just telling you our sentiment about the way that the land around us is zoned right now for our commercial. And that way, Leonard is trying to lessen the commercial footprint, and we're more for that than just leaving it the way it is.
Landscape approval.
I think what I'm hearing say is that he supports the request because it's that Northeast Village will not be entirely non-residential as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah, so it's
The applicant's nodding his head, so.
Yeah.
Because, well, factually, that's accurate. The entire Northeast Village will not be all commercial. There is a 25-acre employment site that's required, and the area right next to the government center is not going to be typical single-family residential, and the area along the north-south road won't be, but the rest of the land could be residential under the way the conditions are drafted. So it likely is not going to be commercial all around him. But I will tell you that staff did not want single-family residential next to the jail at the government center. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So there are some areas that staff did not support single-family residential in that Northeast Village. But if the concern is that there was going to be commercial all around them, that shouldn't be a concern anymore.
Okay, well, that's what we're looking for.
I'm just saying, I don't think anybody in your development, in your subdivision, should have assumed that we were going to put single-family residential across our jail, right next to our jail.
Well, no, I don't think we assumed that.
Okay.
But the fact brought to us that the land around us was zoned commercial. And our petition to have the land zoned to make it a smaller footprint is what we're in acceptance.
I think staff has done a good job of ensuring that the areas that should be residential in that area are residential, and the areas that should be non-residential are going to be non-residential. So, but the applicant can address it further if they want to when they get up.
All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And, okay, thank you. And let me just say before anybody else comes up, what we want to try to do, because I know there are a lot of people that may want to speak, and some people that are here that aren't planning to speak. But if you do speak, what we'd like to do is to try to keep it to be something new that you're going to bring to our attention. In other words, I know somebody's going to bring up traffic, and we're going to have to address those issues. But it doesn't do any good for 10 people to bring up traffic. So try to bring up something new so we can move through, give everybody a chance to say what's important to them, and then get the answers that you need, because that's really where we really want to go with this. We want to get these answers to your questions. So if you want to come up and speak, and you've been sworn, please come up and state your name and address.
Mr. Chair, we do have a sign-in sheet, so do you mind if I call the folks
Yeah,
from the
that'd be
sign-in
fine. Yep.
Mr. Chair, before we get to the people in the audience, we have nobody else on WebEx.
We have no one else on WebEx. We clarified those people were just listening.
Okay, all right, thanks.
So the first person we have signed up to speak is Mr. John Russell, and followed by Penny Russell.
Okay, Mr. Russell, if you give your name and address, please, for the record.
John Russell, 9652 Cavendish Court, which is in Heritage Lakes on Little Road. Yes, I have been sworn.
Thank you.
What I had to say would take way longer than 3 minutes, and so I have sent an email, you may have gotten it, with my main concerns. I come from a background with Clearwater Parks and Recreation. I worked for the city for almost 30 years, and I was a maintenance manager for Parks and Recreation and a project manager, and I found out at that time that my left brain and my right brain were fighting with each other because I have to deal with laws, ordinances, permits, all this stuff. And then I was in an environmental situation with parks, and there was beautification and water management and all this sort of thing. So my comments are, first of all, to compliment, I think, Mr. Hobby and their et al.'s. I think they did a great presentation on that. My main concerns in the email I sent were from the left brain side, the objective side, and they dealt with traffic and with the stormwater drainage. The only one thing that left is my right brain, which is arguing with me on this and said, this is an absolutely beautiful design. Let's pick it up and set it down on Ridge Road and the Suncoast. Would be really nice over there, because then people could get to Tampa and Crystal River and all that stuff. Well, I know that's not going to happen in reality, but I do hope that you will read the email and hear our thoughts or my thoughts on it, and if I can give any further assistance, I would appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Can I ask Mr. Russell when he
Sure.
sent his email?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Russell?
Mr. Russell, there's a question.
When did you send the email?
This morning.
Okay.
I apologize I just didn't even know about this for reasons I was out of the area until I got back, and I just had to sit down and put that email together.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
May I ask a question from staff? I apologize.
Yes.
What email address was it sent to, sir?
To each of the commissioners for everyone on the individual.
Thank you.
Did anybody receive this email?
I haven't seen it, but we sent it this morning, so.
I don't think I have.
Sir, do you have a copy that you want us to receive and file, or, because it doesn't look like anybody got your email?
No, I don't have that with me. I can bring it in subsequent if that's acceptable.
Why don't you just bring it in when it goes to the Board of County Commissioners? Send it to the Board of County Commissioners and bring it in at that time, and they can ask that it be received and filed.
County Commissioners.
I can probably pull it up on here. I just turned my phone off if you want it. Otherwise,
Wild, huh?
Well,
Upscale. Damn. Public horses.
well, unless somebody can print it out at this point, it's probably not going to do us any good. So
Okay.
I wouldn't worry about it.
it's here if you want to
Yeah,
just wait.
I think as was suggested, I think if you can get it to the
Got it.
Board of County Commissioners,
Got it.
and that way they can take advantage of it. And if you send it and it just hasn't arrived yet, it's got to go through China before it gets here. So,
Watch out.
yeah.
Another conversation.
I'm watching out. I'm not worried about it.
Okay.
So, if we get it, we'll certainly read it, and I don't know if you sent it to our county email or our personal
Send
email.
it to jgiradi@pascocountyflorida.net.
Yeah, I don't, I mean.
And 6 more. Sorry.
Okay. Well, if you get it to the county commissioners, maybe take a hard copy to the meeting.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
I'm Penny. I'm John's wife. I hesitate to get up, honestly, but I'm just going to read what I
Penny,
wrote.
excuse me a minute. Is Penny next on the list?
That's
Okay.
correct, yes.
Just want to make sure we're trying to stay on the list. Okay.
But I'm going to read what I had. My mind has been modified a little bit since listening. But, 9652 Cavendish Court, Newport Richey, 34655. Thank you. Sure. 9652 Cavendish Court,
Newport Richey, Florida, 34655.
See, now you know how I feel.
Bless you. Okay, again, since maybe you didn't hear this, I'm somewhat hesitant to come up, but I'm going to read what I prior thought. With all due respect, I guess my biggest question is when is enough enough? I applaud. I tell you, these guys did an amazing job. It sounds wonderful, and I don't know how it could get any better, but I'm also cynical regarding what will really happen. Things don't always happen as presented. I'm not speaking as someone who is just talking off the top of my head, but I am speaking of someone who is against any more building or development that has to do with removing just plain old nature. I don't know about you guys, but that's what we live to do. It's what we've raised our family to do. I'm not a tree hugger. I'm not someone who has nothing better to do with my time. And I would never attempt to list the multiple concerns, like you said, that I'm sure people are eager to and pretty soon going to tell you all the problems. But who I am is I'm a person who appreciates, respects, and I understand that being part of the solution is better than being part of the problem. I'm also someone who appreciates the endless benefits of being outdoors. Clean air, shade, quiet wildlife, just anything and everything. I'm sure the majority of us were raised, fortunately, and raised in such an environment, and that's probably why we are hopefully the decent people we are. There's a whole lot more I could say on that. I also have to say, we've been in Florida since '80. We've been in Pasco for 8 years of those, of the last 42 years. But I would love to see Pasco. One reason we came here is I'd like it to think that we could be a county that would stand for maybe doing things a little differently. Again, it sounds as though that's what's going to happen with this. It sounds like it's a moot point to refute it because it is going to happen. But I'd like to make sure whatever I can do to help this be something that's proactive and offers as much good as anything is really what is in my heart. The other thing I would like to say is, I bet most people here, we want our children, but more specifically our grandchildren, to live in a place that's at least as good as, if not better than, the place that it was when we got here. And I'm sorry, but, you know, my ears go up, and I wish nothing was going to happen. We're fortunate we live in a piece of property that we have 5 endangered species on, and so this doesn't affect me directly, but this all affects everybody indirectly. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay.
Next person is David Robeson, followed by Margot Robeson.
David, if you could give us your name and address, please.
Okay, tell me if I'm talking too loud or too softly, because I don't know. David Robinson, I'm at 5929 East Lake Drive, Newport Richey, 34653.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your service.
I'd like to just tell you how I feel. I've been watching Pasco County now for 25 years grow into a gridlock. And I'm living the same nightmare I lived in Orange County, California. I watched Orange County, California grow from 500,000 to 5 million people, from private roads to build the new cities, to 10 lanes on I-5 going both ways to San Diego and Los Angeles. Everybody I know that lives here moved here because it's a rural area, and rural lives do matter, okay? Rural lives matter. And we don't want to see that Florida turned into California, okay? It's really emotional for us because I saw the same thing when I moved to the state of Washington. So I moved down here. Pasco County, Newport Richey, beautiful little city, right on the northwest corner of the metropolis. It's basically rural, and now it's turning into gridlock again. So I have a wild solution. First of all, you have to understand that we, the people, don't want more people, okay? Which means we really don't want development, but we know we can't stop development. So here's a solution that I came up with, and this is the same solution Santa Barbara City came up with in California. You can't build unless you're building on an existing sewer, electric, and water meter. That way, you're not destroying any more land. You're not destroying the land, the lives, the livelihood, and the habitats of the people and the animals that are there. You build up, and you can build bigger on existing electric, sewer, and water meters. That has kept Santa Barbara manageable. It's not Los Angeles, okay? It'll keep your population down. You won't have any future ghettos because you're going to build on the old buildings. So I just hope that makes sense to you. And it's very emotional. It's very overwhelming for us. Okay? I just need you to know that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next is Miss Margot Robinson.
Ms. Robinson, if you can state your name and address.
My name's Margot Robinson. I live at 5929 East Lake Drive, Newport Richey. And I noticed in the beginning of the presentation that they said that none of the state agencies had foreseen any problems with this development. And I was just wondering if Swift Mud was going to rubber stamp everything this close to the Cody River. Because I know down in South Florida, they're having huge problems with drainage into with La Cucci that's running down in the Gulf and creating the green, in 2018 when we had the bad algae problem going out in the Gulf, killed all the fish and everything. That was basically from the development runoff getting into the rivers and then running out into the Gulf. So I'm just concerned about more development on the Cody River. And one of the solutions to that problem is to stop chemical spraying into the lawns. In other words, to make the landscaping has to be natural Florida landscaping, not green sod they bring into the squares and lay down. So natural landscaping, I think, in a development would be much more advantageous for not harming the environment. The other thing I noticed on the plat was the green areas and all the wetland areas. I think about 158 acres or something. And it appeared that it was fronting Plath, and most of the green was fronting Plath, and it was really nice looking the way they'd laid it out. But is that going to remain the existing 200-foot pine trees, or are they going to bulldoze all that and put in this crap they bring in from the nursery? That's, I think it would be very important to demand that they keep the pine trees. Because number one, it increases your property values. If you're surrounded with those big, huge pine trees, you can get more money for your house. So.
Okay. Somebody's calling.
I had been reading some of the Pasco people. One was a lady had written an email posted on Facebook, said, after 28 years in Pasco, I own these 3 homes there, raised 3 daughters as a single parent in Pasco schools. All my children graduated with Bright Future scholarships. And she says, I thank the Lord I landed in the state of Florida, but I had to leave Pasco after 28 years. The overpopulation is just more than I can bear. I had to move north. And that just kind of says a little bit about what's going on in Pasco. Another lady, Nancy Thompson, says, I'm sickened by what's taking place in my Pasco County. I went to experience nature, and nature's being destroyed. The amount of development here is staggering and unchecked. So I do really like the way they laid out this development, considering they dropped the commercial down to 1.4 mil square feet, and the fact that they
your time is up, but
incorporated a lot of green.
Trying to let you finish, so.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just
Thank you.
trying to make sure everybody else has time.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Next up are Laura Jeske, followed by Mark Jeske. And I do want to say that Mr. Mark Jeske has been granted 5 minutes.
Okay. Laura, if you'd like to give us your name and address, please.
Thank you. My name is Laura Jeske. I live at 6949 Plath Road, Newport Richey, and I've been sworn. Thanks for the opportunity to voice my concerns. Okay. Pasco County government seems to be losing sight of what's really important to our quality of life and that of our children and grandchildren. I wonder what you will tell your children and grandchildren about your decisions and the lasting impact of those decisions in years to come. I encourage you to seriously reflect on that. You all are in a powerful position to determine the quality of life of all of our lives in the county for many generations to come. You can already see the gridlock that the county has facilitated. You can see the stripped land that the county has authorized, and you can see the extended time for police calls to high-density crime housing while citizens wait and wait for ambulances and trucks, fire trucks stuck in traffic. If the developers were made to pay for their real impact on our environment and our quality of life, I doubt that we would see nearly as much building as being done now. Why can't they pay for the needed improvements of infrastructure before they build new housing and new business sites? Does this county really need a few more strip malls? Construction jobs are good for the county, good for the economy in the right proportion, but they're temporary. The cost of new roads, schools, police, utilities, and gridlock are permanent. The county continues to rubber stamp and approve because some folks thought 15 years ago that this was a good idea. Well, I don't think it's a good idea anymore. Haven't we learned anything in 10 or 15 years that would cause us to make different decisions today? I believe the county is being influenced too much by mega developers and builders. They are walking away with millions with essentially full approval of the county as we watch almost total destruction of wildlife habitats with the county's blessing. The developers will be long gone when the drought comes and we no longer have enough water for our homes. They'll be long gone when their high-density housing turns into a slum. They'll be long gone when the schools are overcrowded, and they'll be long gone when the roads they help trash finally need repair, improvement, or expansion. Most of us have moved to Pasco because of its green space. The county is developing and paving over the best parts. It's trashing our future and that of our kids. This has to stop, and you can make that happen. Thanks for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Because these people will come up and speak. If you have questions, let me know, okay? Should I come up, sir?
My name is Mark Jeske, and I live at 6949 Plath Road. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the commission. I'm going to reference 8 articles in my speech, and I would please request permission to submit the first identifying page of each of those articles into the public record.
All right. Thank you. A motion?
Move to receive and file.
Second.
Pardon?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Can you pass those out to us now,
Sure.
or do you need them for your speech?
I just have the first page. Do you need the whole record?
No,
No,
I'm just-
whatever you want us to
If
have.
you could just give those to the clerk so we can view them while you're speaking.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have an article where County Administrator Dan Biles said that in 2021, the county issued permits totaling nearly $4 billion in approved property value, a 56% rise above 2020 and double 2019. I have an article where Assistant County Administrator Sally Sherman advised that the county had to hire 10 new staff in planning and 14 in building code review. I have an article where County Property Appraiser Mike Wells states that Pasco County's population could reach almost 1 million by 2040. Current population is around 562,000. Is there anybody in our county who is wondering if enough is enough? Development can be good for the economy and the tax base, but this is way too much of a good thing. I have several articles in which experts have studied the effects of uncontrolled developmental sprawl. They all conclude that uncontrolled development ends up costing the communities a lot more than it generates in economic growth and tax gain. They all conclude that development must be strictly managed for the good of the community. Think of how many thousand animals live on almost 1,000 forested acres. The planned tree buffers around the wetlands are meager at best. I have an article on an extensive survey on the limited success of moving tortoises. Yes, there are rules about how it has to be done, but who will monitor whether it's done right and the continued survival of hundreds of relocated tortoises? Does the county have the resources to enforce that? I, like many others, am very concerned about increased flooding on the Cody River. Many of us, including me, live within a block or less of the river. Land stripped of its vegetation along the river is not going to absorb the same amount of rain and runoff as the current forests do. What will be done to control the flood risk? Is that in the county plan? Considering the millions of dollars at stake with this project and the long planning period it has had, it is probably unrealistic to think that we can stop this speeding train. But why can't we slow it down? Slow it down a lot. A project of this size should be phased in over a long period of time, especially given the current construction madness in our county. A phased development over 20 years or longer would give the current residents and the wildlife an opportunity to acclimate to the change. It would also give more time to react to flooding issues. Respectfully, you folks are the planning commission, not the approving commission. It's time to emphasize planning for the sake of our quality of life and not automatically approve projects. It's time to put the brakes on development for all our sakes and our children's sakes and their children's sakes. It's time for true managed growth. Please. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, next folks signed up to speak, Donna, I believe it may say Brian, and then the other person is Charlene Lassiter.
Donna, Brian? Is there a Donna? Brian?
Brian, I don't know if they've got.
No, this certainly says Donna, just the last name,
Yes,
not sure about
she
it.
left, Mr. Chair.
Oh, she left? Okay. Charlene?
Charlene Lassiter?
Yeah, that's Charlene.
Okay, after Charlene will be Ann Corona.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm Charlene Bailey, B-A-I-L-L-I-E Lassiter, and my family has been in Pasco County for 5 generations, and I'm very concerned about this project and the impact it will have on the area, the county. Yes, I live at 7019 Plath Road, and that's the section that's west of Rowan.
Were you sworn?
Yes, I was sworn. This is a very precious piece of land. So once Little Road was put in, we've driven by it many times. I can't say I've driven by it all my life because I've been here and it wasn't. I know you asked us to make it short, not be redundant, and I condensed this last night. Mainly, I want to speak about the wildlife. The other's been addressed. They're begging you to stop or slow this down. There's 956 acres for which they will not be able to find safe haven. The animals have already been displaced from a couple other areas,
recently, and that is Copper Springs, the area near Little Road or the Veterans place that they're redoing, and also right by the river at Riverwalk Preserve. So if the buffers near the area, the highways, those need to be enlarged. Where are the animals going to go? They're all taken. Everything's gone or will be gone. And also, my main question is, have you, the planning, are there any underpasses for animals or animal corridors under the roads? Any of that area? And also, I saw on the county's website, protect, conserve, and manage. If you recognize those words. Another thing is, how about the maintenance of some of the areas? I don't know that you maintain habitat areas, but so to enlarge them, make them bigger, do the underpass, and have your park areas a little larger. The areas for maybe picnics or something that people are not continually walking through and traveling through. So you're not destroying the habitat, the natural growth that's there that the animals need, the birds, the other wildlife. Another thing is improve the water quality. I can imagine what this is going to do with the quality of the water along the Cody River. This is a lot. Once you get all those impervious areas from the roadways, the concrete, the driveways, all the runoff, and when the runoff is not necessarily handled or, say, pitched to the river, where's it going to go? Is it going to flood us downriver, across the highway? This has happened in other areas where it can't handle it. You've taken all the natural land or the places for it to soak in. Are you buzzing me out? And so please, actually, like Mark said, slow this train down. And could this not be phased in over a long range of time, say a 15-year period for the acclimation also?
Charlene,
Because this is
time's up.
overdevelopment.
I'm sorry.
Thank
you very much. We appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Oops.
She broke it.
Bill.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? I know I'm really short.
Yeah.
Ann Corona, 7615 Tanglewood Drive, Newport Richey, Florida. We in
Were you
Tanglewood.
sworn?
I'm sorry?
Were you sworn in? Were you sworn in?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. We in Tanglewood have been fighting against the encroachment of the bulldozers for a year. Shannon Whitwer and I are very familiar with all the problems we're discussing here. Wildlife, traffic, schools, infrastructure, that all holds true. I myself right now am concerned about, when I see this project, about the extent of the commercial commercial, light industrial. I'm concerned about the extent of crime. I don't think that type of development belongs in this area at all. I don't like the look of the project. It's like 20 pounds of horse feed in a 5-pound bucket. That's my opinion. My daughter works for Mattamy Homes she works for Pulte. She worked for Mattamy. The Mattamys in Jacksonville are much nicer than the ones here. She tries to explain planned residential plan development to me. She's failing so far. But when I sent her the stats on this particular project, she was appalled. She said, "The overdevelopment in your area has got to stop." And she's a builder superintendent. 1,000 acres, 3,500 homes, and this accessory nonsense is a massacre. But my main concern is the safety. Has anyone at all considered the impact of the safety on the citizens of Pasco County with this large influx of individuals? I know the sheriff has, because I talk to him all the time. We have the lowest number, close to the lowest. Out of 67 counties, we are number 63 in a ratio of deputies to 1,000 citizens. That's terrible. When you dump something like this into an area, it can only get worse. The impact will be devastating. And your taxes are going to go up because we're going to need more deputies, more cars, more helicopters, more fire and EMTs, more ambulances. How much of this constant impact on your safety are you willing to take? The sheriff and his command staff and deputies are incredible, but he is not a miracle worker. There's only so much he can do. One charter school for this? Really? See, what they do in Jacksonville is first they think about the infrastructure, then they build. I think that's a very interesting approach. You need to think of that, you need to consider safety, and you need to stop this continued massive destructive overdevelopment. Thank you.
Next is Shauna Patero, followed by David Ryan.
Hello,
Hi.
my name is Shauna Patero. I live at 7447 Alderman Lane, Newport Richey, 34653. I recently moved to Pasco from Pinellas about 5 months ago to escape the congestion to a more rural atmosphere. I just bought a home off Plath Road because of the rural area. I won't take too much of your time, but I am here to object to the corruption and build of Newport Corners. 960 acres, 3,000 homes. Imagine it right now. How many homes that is. I'm a born and raised Floridian, and I'm saddened by this plan. I'm here to be the voice for the animals and for the people who couldn't make it here today and couldn't get off of work. Your residents do not want this to happen. I brought and started a petition when I first heard about this build and this plan. It's called Stop Newport Corners Petition. I started it a few months ago, and I brought it to submit so everyone could see. I have printed out, oh geez, sorry. I have printed out everyone's reasons for signing. We have hundreds of comments on why they don't want this to happen. And I also brought the actual petition itself along with every single signature. I have 1,196 signatures against this right now. It's growing every hour. Just as I printed this today at work before I took time off to come here, it was still more people were signing. So I just wanted to submit this paperwork so you guys had it.
You want us to receive and file that document?
Yes.
Do you have, is that an extra copy that we can
This
keep?
is, yeah, for you guys, yeah.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
All in favor?
Can you please give that to the clerk?
Okay, sorry, okay. Think about your drive here today. I drove here today about 1 p.m. and it was congested. Now imagine that many homes with that many cars coming here. Am I up? Okay.
You got one more minute.
Okay. To me, this is insanity. Don't turn Pasco County into Pinellas County. I moved here for a reason. Save these animals. And mostly, what I'm concerned about, we're going to move and pretty much murder these animals because when they're displaced, they don't know how to react. So people can drive their golf carts to other people's houses and to a store. It's insanity to me. I disagree with Lennar and the representatives. We need to keep our trees and keep our animals and focus on our ecosystem for once. I live right next to where they're planning on building this. I live off of Plath. It's a dirt road right next to Cody River Elementary. Cody River Elementary does not have sidewalk for walkers. These kids can't walk to school. There's a serious concern for traffic in and out of the school. There's only one way in and out of the school and one way out of the school. So emergency vehicles have no room, and our road, Keropolis Lane, is the only other option on the west side of the school, which is a private road, our road.
Excuse me, 3 minutes is up.
Okay. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is David Bryan. I live at 8626 Magnum Court, 34655. To answer your question, you wanted to know where I was in relation, people, where they are. I live on the Cody River. It's out my back door. I'm right in off River Crossing and Galen Road. Been there over 24, 25 years. Everybody's brought a nice shiny project here. Nobody wants to talk about the downside. I got a sinkhole. In my house, right next to the Cody River, they stopped drilling at 110 feet, no bedrock. Allstate handed me a check and said, see ya. During the course of my hearing with the attorneys for the insurance companies and my attorney, found out in my little neighborhood there's 17 sinkhole properties. Mine isn't one. I didn't go through it. They just gave me a check and left. Your staff could have went to the property appraiser's office and found out, because you get a discount when you have a sinkhole. They could have told you this very area, when you call an insurance company, is called a red flag sinkhole area. I want to know how. I live on the east side of that river, and I don't have a bedrock there. And on the other side, you're going to build all this stuff without even doing any drilling to find out where the bedrock is? You can't predict sinkholes. I get that, but you can look at history like the insurance company does. Cost to benefit. They won't sign. I had to go through Citizens. And now you're going to go over there, and I fixed my house. When you do construction, there's a lot of destruction. There's a lot of movement of the ground. There's a lot of that going on. When you start disturbing that, and all of us in that area start having more sinkhole problems like cracked tile, who's going to fix that? You guys, because you approved it? The builder? I want to know, so when I go to my attorney, I can tell him that this was put on the record. Plausible deniability is gone. No, your staff for 2 years never told you that that's a red flag sinkhole area per insurance companies? They could have went over to property appraisers and brought you this stuff. You guys need to look who's telling you stuff, because years down the road, well, if it goes bad, your names are going to be the one to approve it. 2.2 miles from Plath Road is a huge sinkhole right by the varsity club. This stuff happens. I moved up here from South Florida. I didn't know about sinkholes when I bought my house. In mid-Florida, in this area, it's almost like a bad ex-wife that won't go away. They're everywhere. And they're asking you to approve this stuff, and none of these intelligent people with a lot of millions of dollars on the table have told you the downside. You might want to ask yourselves why. So, if any questions, willing to answer?
Do you have your documentation?
Do I have? I know I didn't bring it, but if you up there, I wouldn't take a citizen's documentation to base my reputation
Listen,
on. I'll give it to you. I'll give it to
excuse
staff.
me, sir. Talking. When you come up here and make assertions like you've just made, you need to bring documentation so that we can document it in our file. You can't just come up and make.
You are correct. I assume you have a staff that you
assertions.
pay. You're making these big decisions.
You're making the assertions. We want to know.
You can check it.
If that's true. I'm not going to check it.
Charles Gray.
You
Mr.
came
Gray,
here to tell us.
Mr. Gray, if you want, I'll bring them to your office. I'll show you the
Bring
huge
them.
file.
You're supposed to bring them to the meeting.
But you were
That's
gonna,
why
I got
we're here
30
today.
minutes to come here.
Well, we can't.
I see where your side
We-
is, Mr. Gray.
yeah,
I see
you-
what side
you-
you're going to.
You see where I am,
I see
that's
where you're
right.
going to.
Yeah, I've only lived here how much longer than you?
Damn. Oh,
Yeah, a
by the
lot
look of you,
longer.
you're a whole lot older than me, so I would say.
I've
it's a lot
lived
of
here a
years.
lot longer than
Ask
you.
yourselves, people.
Yeah, that's all right.
Mr. Chair, I believe this next name is Susie Johnson. I may be mistaken on the first name, but certainly the last name is Johnson.
Okay.
Followed by William Cahill, and then the last person I have signed up to speak is Dominique Cyprian.
Okay, would you like to come up in that order, please? Did you hear that, say that first name again?
Absolutely. It appears to be Susie Johnson, but I'm not certain about the Susie. Certainly the last name is Johnson.
She's coming.
Followed by William Cahill, and then Dominique Cyprian.
Hello, I've been sworn in, yes. My name is Susie Johnson, 7832 Castle Drive, Newport Richey, 34653.
Thank you.
One of the things I'd like to do before I start is address the comments from the Lennar representative. As he made some kind of subtle manipulative comments talking about the trees and the forest and how every forest has its time. You know, it's all going to be cut down eventually. You know, that's kind of to implant some things in your head that make you think that, well, it's time for it to go. No, it's not time for it to go. Like everyone else has said before, overgrowth is too much. You know, we all need development, yes, but this is too much. You know, and the other woman said about Pinellas County, I was going to bring that up too. You know, living in Pasco County, and if you go north, Hernando, Citrus, you look at those counties, isn't that what you want our city to look like and our county to look like? You go to Pinellas, what do you see? Nothing but buildings. There's not even any property left to build on. It's nothing but buildings. Go south Hillsborough, Sarasota, they're building up like crazy. We want to keep our county and our city beautiful and not something people want to run away from. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. William Cahill. I live at 5120 Farnsworth Lane, Newport Richey, 34653. My first item is, I have a question. Have there been any comprehensive independent studies in regards to wildlife habitat destruction, as well as stormwater runoff and pesticide seepage into the Cody River? Do we know, has there been anything?
You can ask those questions, and then he's going to answer them when he comes up.
Somebody from
The
panel here?
applicant. The applicant.
Okay. I hear a lot of talk about concentrated new downtown area in that center of the building there. Won't this take away from what I consider to be a maturing downtown area of Newport Richey as is? I spent many years, I've been here since 2002, and moved up here from Pinellas, and I don't want to see Pasco become Pinellas. Trinity Commons was built in hopes of, in my opinion, to compete with downtown Newport Richey, and it failed. Is that what they're going to build again, another failed downtown district? And how is it going to affect our businesses that exist down there? My last point is, I think we all can agree that I think we're heading towards a housing market crash. What happens when the bubble bursts and all of this cleared land sits undeveloped and unused, yet destroyed, like what happened on Bailey Bluff in Holiday, right across from the Anklo power plant? They destroyed all that land, the housing market crashed in 2012, and now it just sits three-quarters wrecked. Do we have any guarantees that they could do this in phases? You know, because it sounds like we're not going to be able to stop it. You know, but how do we make sure that it gets developed and gets developed intelligently and not greedily? Good. That's it. That's all I have.
Okay, any questions? All right, thank you very much. We'll try to get you those answers.
Hello, my name is Dominique Cipriani, 5120 Farnsworth. I'm a significant other of William Cahill. Not to be redundant, because everyone has voiced legitimate concerns about this beautiful jewel that lays on the Cody River and beyond. So the appeal is to please consider and plan forward not only the impact of what's will happen to this community and the land, but also the impact of, as we kayak down the Cody River, myself and Bill, the impact of one home being developed, the debris and the lack of responsibility from the builder who's just going to go away. Imagine the impact of such a huge project. So please preserve this jewel. Preserve the collective happiness and the collective almost higher consciousness of this area of nature. And please consider something else moving forward as opposed to this. Progress is important. Progress can't be stopped. But as the gentleman had also mentioned, please, careful planning is really important to the community and the whole Gulf area for setting a precedent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that was the last person we had signed up to speak, but perhaps some folks may have.
All right, so anybody that's hasn't signed up to speak, or is there anybody that now would like to speak? Okay.
My name is Madeline Taff. I was sworn in. I live 8900 Lindy Lane, Newport Richey. I live off of Lindy Lane, one of two small dirt roads off of Little between Plath and Massachusetts on the Coatee River. Driving into our home, we are greeted by deer, raccoons, and 6 gopher tortoises. The other day, a bobcat actually got one of my chickens. From our back deck, we watch a family of otters and the occasional gator. Where are these animals going to go? Has Leonard studied the Coatee River? This time of the year, we can walk right across, but give it a few months, and this small-looking river turns into a literal raging river. And I'm worried that this new development will flood out my land and screw up the entire ecosystem and poison my well water. As a mother of 3, there are plenty of parks for my children within a 3-mile radius. And in my opinion, we don't need any new ones. It sounds great on paper that they're going to provide all this stuff for our kids and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, we are very happy with going to Starkey Park and use those trails, which many of the trails in Starkey Park are unused. And I don't really think we even have like that big of a big biking community or even a community that would use these new trails that are wanting to come in. Anyway, so I just want to know what Leonard is going to do to keep our water clean and to stop the flooding and, I don't know, don't mess up the river. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. I think there was someone else that raised their hand. Yeah, come on forward.
Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Dosher. For the record, address 5715 Acropolis Lane, Newport Richey, Florida 34653. To give you kind of if you don't know where that is, Cody River. I have not, ma'am.
Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do. Thanks. So right where Cody River Elementary School is, where the private road right down Cody River. I've lived there my entire life. My grandparents, generational, same thing. Back when part of that land used to be groves, my grandfather had a dairy farm back there. So again, the nature is obviously very important to me. What's more important is now that Youth and Family Alternatives was built off of Plath Road. We completely flood every year. 3 out of the 5 acres, we're underwater. I'm talking knee deep and higher. So I don't know what's going to happen to Cody River. Forget my little property, because that's probably nothing anyone cares about. But that entire school, come summertime, the flooding and stuff, not even necessarily on the river side. We're talking just the flooding within that own area, that little section there, west side of where this development is going in. Has anyone ever considered, I understand that development happens, have you considered making that into maybe a county-owned preserve, equestrian park, something like they've done in Ocala, that massive park where that brings in a lot of money for the county, but it also preserves the land, an extension of Starkey Park, or something where the land can still be preserved and the county still make money off of it, still employ people to run the parks and services or whatnot. So that's just a suggestion of mine. Yeah, and just the flooding. I mean, as kids, we used to ride our horses in that property, and it is being destroyed by trash and whatnot back there now, but there's so much wildlife. There's everything from eagles and tortoises and deer. And so, I mean, truly, if you looked at that one map that shows that piece of property where we go from the 70s until now, this is the only land left, undeveloped. Well, yeah, so where does all that wildlife go, Then you're talking widening the roads and having even more, so what is Little Road gonna be, a 6-lane, 8-lane, 90-mile-an-hour road? Plath Road, again, there's no sidewalks that come down Plath Road currently. So when you're talking walkers, they'll have to go around the entire Cody River to be able to walk to school down Keropolis Lane, which is a private road. So I think there's just a lot more that needs to be, that needs to go into that planning phase if it's truly gonna happen on how those kids are gonna be able to walk and whatnot. And one other thing, with the golf cart situation, they're talking about leading it into downtown Newport Richey. The only way they would go through that is through Massachusetts, like down Massachusetts. Otherwise, they're cutting through people's neighborhoods to get to downtown Newport Richey. That's not a direct access. There's no highway that goes through that neighborhood. That's all private, neighborhoods back there. Otherwise, they're taking Plath Road, again, through Plath Road, the private road, if you know where that goes, the extension of Plath to get to downtown Main Street. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, Clark Hobby again. When I hear these comments, it reminds me a lot of what my family thinks of Pasco County, being from an older Pasco County family and having had so many friends and feeling my father was welcomed over here by many of our friends on the West Pasco side when he started working over here about 1980. And I share a lot of the same concerns that they have about the view, the way the area has grown up, preserving nature. These are all considerations that go into and through my mind when we started planning this project. And that's why we're trying to preserve a lot of the areas on the site that we are, creating the beautiful trails through the site. And I know for everybody who's from here or someone who's just moved here recently, we would love that a lot of these areas in West Pasco County that we don't own stay the way that they are, especially when they're undeveloped, because they're beautiful. I wish the orange groves were still there. I wish the orange groves were all over my hometown, Dade City. They were everywhere. They're gone. Times change. We have to plan property in accordance with what the comprehensive plan says. And what I tried to do on this project is to make it the very best I could within the rules that I have to follow with our planning team and our engineering team to make this a credit to West Pasco County and to be something we can be proud of. I'll address a few comments, but I hope you'll understand that we share all those same concerns, and I know that our neighbors feel strongly about that, and I'm not discounting that in one way. But I have to follow the law, and I have to follow the comprehensive plan when we plan these kind of projects. That's what we're following and what we have to do. I'll address a few things. There were numerous questions about the trees and the pine trees. And again, we're trying to preserve a lot of areas down by the river and create other open spaces and green spaces with the trees. But I just want everybody to understand, orange groves got planted for a financial gain for the property owner. And when orange groves went away, everybody planted pine trees for two reasons. Greenbelt, to keep your taxes low, and number two, it's a production crop. So you plant pine trees and they take about 30 years to fully mature, then they get cut down. The same property owner owned the property at the northwest corner of Massachusetts and Little, and they've harvested pine trees there at least once, and they're replanting now. It takes a while to come back, but it's a production crop. So I just want everybody to know they weren't planted just for a view shed for the property owner or for neighbors. They were planted for financial gain. When we talk about sprawl and things like that, it's important to remember this is the antithesis of sprawl. This is called infill development. Everything's developed around this because the landowner gave the right of the right-of-way for Little Road and for the bridge, and everything's built around it as a result of that over the years. What we're trying to do is take the last big hole in the donut and do a quality project that will complement all of West Pasco and downtown Newport Richey, because it's in close proximity to it, and that's near and dear to all of our hearts. With regard to flooding, a lot of the communities that were built down to the southwest of this site, there were no swift mud rules when some of those developments were built back in the day, and we have to follow the swift mud rules now that say that we cannot neither increase the volume of water being discharged or the rate of flow. And in our community meeting, we had a fairly lengthy discussion from Toxie Hall at Clearview to explain to neighbors that the point of the ponds is to slow down the rate of discharge of any stormwater, so that the flooding already occurs down the river. By the time the water comes out of our ponds, the water's already started to recede. That's how good engineering is done, and that's what Toxie said they would do. There were discussions about wildlife. Where would the wildlife go? Well, let me tell you, there was a lot more open space when Dad opened his office over here in 1981 than there is now. But this site is in close proximity to the Starkey Preserve and to the adjacent Serra Nova. And between those two projects and other conservation lands that abut them, there's 18,000 acres of conservation area that's contiguous. So we feel like there's more than adequate area for wildlife to go. Our studies that we submitted with the MPUD did not indicate a large, there basically were only gophers and some wading birds observed that needed special protection, and we will follow all the rules about that. I won't keep going. I know I'm running out of time. I will point out that the project build-out date is 2035. It's not going to be built overnight. It will be phased in. Again, we've done everything that I think we can do to put together a quality plan project. A heck of a lot of time and energy on the county staff's part and ours has gone into it. And I'm here today to tell you that I'm very proud of it, and I think it'll be a credit to our community. So I'd appreciate your support, and I'm happy to answer any final questions. One last thing for Mr. Williams. In looking at some of our plans, I think we probably can fairly easy make a closer connection to the school from our path system earlier in the project. So thank you.
Mr. Hobby.
So I have two questions, but. go
Yeah.
ahead.
You might want to touch on impact fees, because I think one of the
Right.
questions is, why do you develop and then the county has to pay for
Well,
streets and roads? And
Well, I think that the question is, do you plan for the future, and why do you do this stuff and you don't? The very effort we've gone through for the last 2 years is a planning effort in conjunction with the county about how to build the right form of development that will work with the community and be a credit to it. However, there are many, many impact fees and mobility fees that the county requires now that they didn't require 40 years ago, one of which is mobility fees, and it's estimated that the project will result in the county receiving over $18 million in mobility fees, and the county has told us that they want to determine the timing in which projects among 3 major ones where they will use the project. So this is what the lockbox concept that's in the MPUD conditions is about. The improvements would either occur to Little Road, to Keropolis, or Starkey, or intersections, or other parallel relievers of those roads. The point being, the system's all interconnected. We anticipate a lot of trips will be diverted to Ridge Road now that it's in place and will ultimately be 4-lane. But we are paying into the county system a lot of money and other impact fees that help offset the cost of development. And I can say for one thing for Mr. Williams, I can tell you that the school board does not set the school impact fees any bit lower than the impact of each unit that comes online, unless they just can't politically get away with it. But they have gone up substantially in the last 5 or 10 years and are intended to offset the impact of the residential units.
so what are the impact fees right now?
I mean, we have 7 or 8, I think, total. There's fire, there's school impact. Chris, you want to address the school
Well, I
impact?
was just going to say, for single-family detached for school, it's around $8,000 per unit.
So it'd be about $25 million paid in from this
I
project.
think it's around, if you're asking the total number of, I think it's around 20,000 per unit, something
Yeah, I
like
think
that.
last I checked, it was a little more than that. I think it was between 25 and
25.
30.
Oh,
I mean,
okay, right,
so
it's higher though.
Right.
it-
No, that
It's a
goes to
significant
pay
number.
for the infrastructure.
Right.
That's what that's for, okay. All right, well, I think a lot of
Happy to
people
answer
are
any
under
other
the,
questions you may have.
I think a lot of people
I do
are under
have
the
two
impression
questions.
that these things get built and the public ends up paying for it. I want to make sure that we all know who's really paying for it. And, because I think that's the only fair way to do it.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I might too, this project's so big and has so many facets, there are things that I'm forgetting to say. One thing, I think I mentioned this earlier, as soon as we make a connection to the existing Osteen segment, which is a fairly long road, we're going to resurface it out of our pocket, okay? And the street network that's all on the east side, all of that's not being paid with one bit of county funds. It's either going to be paid by our clients or their CDD, owned and operated by the CDD, so there's zero burden on the taxpayers.
Okay, and I think you had some questions, David?
Yeah, and I'm not sure, Clark, if you're the best person to address this or not, but there was an allegation made effectively that the county and/or the developer are ignoring the sinkhole risk. And I looked at section 807 of our code. I know the county doesn't ignore it because we require a geotechnical report. Could somebody please address what we do to address the sinkhole issue, or they can explain how 807 of our code works? Anybody on your team? Mr. Girardi?
Well, I mean, do you just want to, I mean, the ordinance requires that we do a geotechnical analysis now with each lot, but Toxie Hall from Clearview Land Design can explain it.
I think just to touch on what David said is that I think one of the questions was, what studies do you have to do in order to do all this? Do you do test borings? Do you do all that kind of stuff?
Toxie Hall, Clearview Land Design, 3010 West Azeel Street. First of all, we have done already our preliminary due diligence geotechnical analysis. It was done by Faulkner Engineering, who is a respected geotechnical engineer in the area, and he did not point out any indication of sinkholes on this property. I'm not disputing what people are saying about having them and what might have caused them, but none of the borings, and I'm going to tell you there were 50 of them across the site, indicated any sinkhole activity. When we go to the final design, we'll do more borings in both the streets and then deep borings in the ponds to make sure that when we dig the ponds, we don't breach the aquifer. And that will all be submitted to Pasco County and the Water Management District along with the final design plans. And then lastly, when we go into partly site plan and partly building permits, we'll meet the Pasco codes where on a lot-by-lot basis, we address, with a geotech, we'll address the possibility of sinkholes on any individual lot. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who else?
So I have one more question.
Go ahead.
So Clark, I appreciate what you said to Mr. Williams, but I think if we are going to plan for a connection to the school from your trail system, I think a couple things need to happen. One is that the connectivity plan would have to be amended to show that connection. And then two, we would need some kind of condition that addresses when that connection to the school will be made.
Absolutely.
The width of the path, whether we're giving you credit against the bike ped part of the mobility fee, all those things need to be addressed
Right.
in a condition, which isn't in there now.
Right.
So,
Well, what I was going to do, David, after the meeting is I need to get with Hannah McAleer, who, drafted the connectivity plan, sit down with Chris. I don't think it'll take us really long. Well, if we create a new point of connection or an extension of one of the trails, we will amend the connectivity plan. We'll address it in a condition with you prior to
during the
getting to
break,
the board.
Terry and I and Amy looked at the map. It seems like the most logical connection is on Plath Road. It doesn't seem like you're going to be able to get a connection to that northern point.
Right.
And I believe Brad confirmed we have plenty of right-of-way on the north side of Plath. Does that sound right, Brad?
David, let me say this. Just, I want to make sure that it's a combination of the right location and the right timing. So I want to be part of the conversation because there may be a different place that we can make a location that would be earlier in the project. And
Okay.
so, but I will work with Chris and with you to create the condition that implements any changes to the plan on it.
Okay, my only pointing out is that requires more detailed writing of a condition. It's not just, we'll work with Chris. There needs to be something.
I understand.
There needs to be an actual written
I've
condition.
got to first figure out where it's going to go on the plan.
Okay.
And then we'll be able to figure out the timing. Again, I can't remember which phase we're in when we get to our very southwestern corner. And I suspect that Chris is hoping that it would be earlier in our project. So I just want to talk to him, and we'll figure that out. But I will work with him.
And then also, there was a question or comment raised about how golf carts would get to Newport Richey or from your area to Newport Richey. What is the long-term plan? I mean, as far as golf carts connecting outside of your development, is
I
there
don't think
one?
anybody on our team brought that up. I think Amy was mentioning it, and I'm not sure that we had in mind golf carts going all the way down Massachusetts. What we were trying to talk about is on-site golf carts on the paths that we have. If the county and working with the city creates a better multi-use path or cart path system over time, I'm sure people would
Well,
avail themselves of it, but that wasn't part of our
Where does Vision
initial
Road
thought.
U go? When
there's, as two of the residents who spoke live back in that area, and it's not entirely clear where it will come out to ultimately go to Rowan. So right now, we're providing for its construction and right-of-way to our western boundary. So we've got to figure that out. School's down there. There's a big lake in the area. So where we have it located now, I think it's fitting between the school and the lake. But again, that's somewhat speculative because there's neighbors back there. And when we started the project, I thought it was extremely speculative once you got to the west of the site. But transportation staff asked that we show it on the plan going there so that if you all do work it out, it could work out down the road.
But at a minimum, if you build this additional connection to the school, you could at least get to and from the school on golf carts, is my
I would think
understanding.
so, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I'm not sure this is important.
Brad?
Brad Tippett, Planning and Development. David, you asked about right-of-way there along the plat. There is what appears to be a gap of right-of-way on their portion of the property on the southern piece along Platte Road. It's assumed that we probably own it by maintenance because the road exists. However, we would need to clarify that and put any corrections that need to be happening in a condition too.
Okay.
Okay. We'll look into that.
Let me ask a quick question.
Yes,
One
sir.
individual brought up water. Are you going to, I assume, I hate to say assume, will reclaimed water go into this development?
Yes. Toxie Hall is indicating yes. And I'd also just say, we had discussions. It's funny that the city of Newport Richey service area covers part of the site near the northwest corner. So we've already worked out with Pasco County Utilities a little flip-flop of service areas so that and it's probably going to be the active adult area will probably be served primarily by the city of Newport Richey.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Clark. Yeah, just a note for me. One of my big concerns was, something that Ms. Lassiter mentioned was wildlife and parks and open space and so forth. And so I just asked if the staff could tell me what we have in the way of parkland and nature trails and stuff like that. And I was a little surprised that we had so much. We got 22 active parks, 13 passive parks, 3 recreational complexes, 5 community centers, 2 swimming pools, 117 athletic fields, 2 public boat ramps, 4,800 acres of environmentally sensitive land, and 18,000 acres of parkland and trails. That's a lot of places for deer to go. And, believe me, I share your concerns, believe it or not. I've lived here all my life. My family, too, has been here, like Charlene's, for 5 generations. And this whole thing concerns me a lot, and I want to make sure it's done right. And I've been looking over their shoulders and talking to them and, making myself comfortable that they're doing what they're supposed to do and that they will do, because I've seen some things that have been done in the past that I can give examples of, and I've already told them that one they did at Copper Springs, in my opinion, was a disaster. And, but we talked that through, and that's never going to happen again. So, we know that the property, fortunately, we're fortunate because for many, many years now, we've been able to, as we grew up here, enjoy a lot of this land. It's just been there for us to use or see or walk through or whatever, and it hadn't cost us a dime. But now it's reached a point where the owner has to do something. We're not paying the taxes on it. We're not maintaining it. But we've got to recognize that every person that owns property has the right to do something with it that falls within the guidelines of whatever the law is. Our job is to try to make sure that they toe the line and follow those guidelines so that it doesn't create a problem for our community. And, we can all think back, Charlene, me, her husband, Bobby, can all think back to the times when it was all orange groves and woods. And I used to love to smell the orange blossoms. You don't see it smell that much anymore. But, as time went on, everybody in this room moved here from somewhere else. And I could have taken a position back then, hey, I don't want you here. I like it like it is. Don't buy that house. Don't build there. Don't move in. Don't mow that lawn. We can't live like that. Unfortunately, what we have to do is try to control it and end up with the best thing we can get. And I felt really comfortable with the fact that the person leading in the charge in this particular instance was Mr. Hobby, because he comes from the same background that many of us that have lived here all our lives have come from. And I don't know if that gentleman's still here that was upset with me, but I'm sure I am a lot older than him. But I wasn't talking about age. I was talking about how long I've been here. And so we all share the community. We all want it to be beneficial to all of us. There's no reason why any of us up here would want to have something less than we can have. So, it's not always an easy job up here, believe it or not. And, but we have to conform to what the law avails property owners of. And they do have rights. You have rights with your property. So, no matter how we vote, everybody's going to vote their conscience. And, but I just wanted you to know my perspective. And none of these applications are slam dunk deals to this board. We're very considerate of what impact it's going to have. And my approach to it is always, what would I think if I lived near there? If I lived near there, would I be happy with it or would I be upset with it? And so, and that's how I'm going to vote. That's how I always vote. So that's my comment.
Mr. Chair, the other thing I want to say is that I'm not sure that most citizens understand that the county took a regional approach to conservation of lands. And so we have penny for Pasco money that is allocated to buy lands for conservation, but that the county's priority was to preserve the large tracts of land such as Serenova and Crossbar and the Connerton Preserve and preserve ecological corridors that connect those major tracts of land. And so we do have penny money that's allocated to purchase land for that conservation purpose and for the movement of wildlife. But this was not one of those areas. So we don't really have funds to go buy large tracts of land like this for conservation that don't have the same ecological value as those ones that I previously identified. So our priority has been to preserve those large tracts of land, preserve the ecological connections between them. Clark knows, how much did we spend buying the connection in Bexley? Was it 23 million dollars we spent to connect Saranova, Connerton, Crossbar. So the county does care about wildlife and cares about preserving land for conservation. It's just not here. And so this wasn't considered a high priority for preservation. So we don't really have the funds to be buying this type of land just to preserve it because some people want it preserved. But I don't want anybody to think that the county doesn't care about conservation or preservation, because we spend a heck of a lot of money buying land for conservation and preservation and for the movement of wildlife, sometimes to the point the developers hate us for doing it. But it is an important goal of the county. The voters approved it, and that's where our efforts lie, to preserve land.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, I guess, can I add?
Please.
Just add quickly, and I know we've been here a long time talking about this, but, I mean, trust me, everybody that got up to speak today, everybody up here heard everything you say. Unplanned growth, unregulated growth is a terrible thing. Fortunately for everybody in this room, for two reasons, I'm going to tell you for two reasons you were lucky. First one's back 30, 40 years ago, that property owner that's there now didn't want to sell, or else that property would have been developed 30 or 40 years ago and would have been developed something more to the kin of what's further north on Little Road. The second thing is Pasco County spends a lot of time, a lot of effort. They have the comprehensive plan, it's a mandated document. They have the harbor's infill plan. They have land use. They have zoning regulations. There's all kinds of environmental regulations from the state, from the local water management district. I mean, I heard somebody get up here earlier today and they started talking about a rubber stamp, and that's all I could do was just laugh to myself, because any development that goes on today is anything but a rubber stamp. I mean, if the public had any idea how long it takes to get through the permitting process to get a project approved, they really would probably be in disbelief, I guarantee it. So I guess on this project, you know, I know the developer has a great team. They put together a great plan. It's great pictures. I love the pictures, and I think everybody else here likes the pictures too. My only hope is that the pictures aren't wasted. The pictures are what everybody gets. You know, we need to make sure and I think the conditions of approval do a really good job of outlining and requiring a lot of what the pictures show to ensure that it's going to be there. There's architectural standards in the conditions. It's just a lot of work's gone into this, and I'm thankful that a lot of work's gone into this, because I think at the end of the day, everybody's going to be proud of this project, proud of what they get. I know it's not what's there today, but what's there today was never planned to be there forever. I mean, it's been planned to be a development of some sort for a long time, so.
Okay, thank you. Could I just add one more follow-up comment to what Jamie just said? There was a comment made earlier that we're becoming Los Angeles, which I took a little bit of offense to, because I think it's an insult to the planners that work for Pasco County. I mean, they've done a good job of trying to make sure that the trips are internally captured, that there's more bicycle pedestrian movement, not car auto dependent. As Amy said, they're trying to make sure that even the retail is not solely an auto dependent use. They're encouraging golf cart use, bike ped use, parks, access to schools, employment. None of that was done in Los Angeles when it created what happened out there. So I took a little offense when somebody said that our planners are letting this become Los Angeles, because I just don't think that's accurate. I think it's a slap in the face to our planners who do a lot of good work, and I would appreciate if people didn't make comments like that, because I don't think it's accurate.
I'd like to springboard on what David said there. The gentleman, I don't know if he said L.A., but I grew up in Orange County, California. And the gentleman talked about the time that he spent, I assume he was in the Marine Corps, because he had a Marine Corps hat on. There used to be a Marine Corps air base there. It's called El Toro. It's gone. It's homes. I had friends that were in the Marine Corps that actually had a duty at that facility. I had a relative that was a pilot in the Marine Corps that flew out of El Toro. It's gone. It is home. You want to talk about homes back to back? I mean, it's a congested area. It is like home after home after home. If it was looking like the development that's been presented here today, I'd probably remain mute on the subject because it doesn't really matter. It doesn't. But the fact is, as David said, it's congested, and this is not a congested area. It's going to be in a very attractive area. They've got parks, they've got trails. I hope I have the opportunity to live long enough to see it completed, to be honest with you. I know folks out there are concerned about development. You know, I've had the opportunity to move to almost 6, 7 times in my career. And I was fortunate enough to land up here in Pasco County. I can thank my wife for that because I wanted to go to Arizona. And that area has grown considerably itself. So I know what you folks feel like when you say, gee, I know some of you are going to be shaking your heads and whatever. Growth happens. Like I said, I lived in 6, 7 different places, and I've seen growth. When I lived in Texarkana, Texas, we had a large lot. We had pine trees behind us. Went back a few years ago. It's all homes now. That's life. Fortunately, as David said, Pasco County does have some very good planners. So please, please understand that growth does happen. People have the opportunity to live someplace. And like I said, Orange County, where I grew up at, it is home after home after home. I used to have orange groves that I used to go play in, used to go rabbit hunting, all kinds of things like that. It's gone. But there are planners in this county that do a great job. And I've looked at these photos. We all saw the photos. It's going to be a beautiful, I think, a very beautiful facility. Thank you.
If, well, like Chuck and like Charlene, you know, I'm a 5th generation Pasco County born and raised as well. You know, like Mr. Hobby shared, my dad owned an orange grove in Land Lakes. I grew up in an orange grove. That's how I learned to work hard. Worked in the orange grove every summer. And, you know, I miss those too. You know, and what's there now? It's pine trees. And someday it's not going to be profitable to keep that going. Someday, my dad, or after my dad's gone, that's going to get sold and something else is going to be there. You know, and I don't like it any more than a lot of you, but at some point, that becomes where it's not profitable. And I don't like it any more than you do, but at some point, you know, the property owner has an option to sell it because they have property rights. And that kind of leaves 2 options. Either the county's going to buy it and turn it into a park, but as David so well said, the county can't buy every piece of property. The other option is for citizens to go buy it themselves and then pay the taxes, keep it green for everybody else. That would be great. But, you know, that's not typically financially feasible either. And so, again, as already been said, we try to do the best to try to manage that growth. I'm surprised, as already been said too, I think Jamie said it, that property hasn't been developed already, you know, to be frankly. And you talked about phasing it. Well, I think it has been phased because it's been vacant for so long. But hopefully, the fact that we've waited this long, hopefully it's going to be done in as best a way as possible. But again, you know, it's not an easy job up here. It's not easy to see for people like us who have been here for so long. You know, we understand that, but we have to do, you know, follow the law, and people have property rights to develop the property that they have.
Mr. Chair, I will add simply that many things could have gone into this, and I think we've very fortunate that we have individuals in our community that have a concern, not just our staff, but those that come here before the commission and represent themselves and their clients. And I think they've done an admirable job trying to maintain what we want to see in this community and what it'll be. So I applaud them for the effort.
Yes, and I guess everybody's had a chance to say something, but the last thing I will say is that I know it's not easy for the ordinary citizens to show up at meetings like this and get up and speak. You know, they say to speak in front of a group, especially people that you know, it's one of the most frightening things you can ever do. And so I know it's not easy for you, and I try to make sure that you don't feel too discomfort. Well, I did make a mistake there with the one guy. You know, he did get under my skin a bit, but I hope maybe we're friends now. I don't know. But that's okay if we're not. Anyway, I appreciate you coming and saying what you had to say. It's important that you have a say. There's a lot of countries where you have no say, and that's one thing we need to all be grateful for. So, thank you very much. And
I'd like to make the motion to approve PDD 22759, also known as 4 Newport Corners NPUD Master Plan Unit Development District.
No, is that with the added condition to have the multi-purpose path connection to Cody Elementary?
Yes.
Okay.
Does that cover it, David?
We can work out the details. I just wanted to make sure the motion included that requirement to have the connection to Cody.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If opposed, like sign. Okay, motion carries. All right, next meeting is County Commission.
Good comments, Jamie. Some good comments.
Thank you. You too. Motion to adjourn.
Pasco County waterways and wildlife depend on you to keep them healthy. Excess fertilizer, grass clippings, trash, oils, and pet waste wash into gutters and storm drains when it rains. Stormwater carries these pollutants directly into our lakes and rivers, creating an unhealthy environment for fish, waterfowl, and other aquatic animals. Storm drains are meant for clean rainwater. Most other discharges are illegal. If you suspect an illicit discharge, please contact Pasco County Department of Public Works at 727-834-3611.
The 6-month Atlantic hurricane season has been described as the mean season. It's no wonder.
Movement westerly away from the peninsula at 5 miles per hour. Sustained winds 75 miles per hour. Gusts to 90, but those hurricane force winds extend outward to 25 miles.
The Saffir-Simpson wind scale measures the intensity of hurricanes, from Category 1, the least intense, to Category 5, the most severe. According to the National Hurricane Center, a Category 4 storm would be expected to cause 100 times the damage of a Category 1 hurricane. Each year, from June 1st through November 30th, Floridians are urged to have a plan and be ready for the annual hurricane season. Last year, Hurricanes Hermine and Matthew reminded us of the power these storms wield, especially in Central and North Florida, where the effects were greatest. Still, nearly half of FPL's 4.9 million customers have yet to experience a major hurricane since 2005. It's important to remember that it only takes one storm to devastate a community. By preparing together, we will not reroute the course of storms, but we may rewrite how we get through them. The one-time director of the National Hurricane Center puts it this way: preparation through education is less costly than learning through tragedy. Here are some steps you can take to help be better prepared for storm season. Make sure FPL has your current phone number and email so it can be quickly matched to your FPL account. You can update your account information online at fpl.com. It's a simple process on your computer or mobile device. Make contact with your local emergency management office if you or someone in your home has special needs in case there is an evacuation. Stock up on supplies such as non-perishable food, enough for up to 14 days, medicine, baby products, and pet food. Also, fill up containers with tap or filtered water, or purchase bottled water to have on hand. The American Red Cross recommends 1 gallon of water per person per day. You should have enough for 14 days. Check your emergency equipment, including flashlights, battery-operated radios, and emergency generators. Remember to buy extra batteries as well as power banks to keep your cell phone charged. Now is the time to check your hurricane shutter system or make sure you have alternate coverings such as plywood that you can use to properly shutter windows and doors. Finally, trim trees that are not near power lines and clear away the debris. Once a hurricane warning is announced, trash pickup is suspended. All of these steps should be part of storm season preparation and done well in advance of any storm warning. If a storm strike is imminent, FPL activates its comprehensive storm plan. Since 2006, we've invested nearly $3 billion to strengthen our energy grid to provide you with electricity you can count on in good weather and bad. While our energy grid is better prepared to withstand the storms that come our way, high winds and flooding will cause damage, so we train year-round to restore power safely and as quickly as possible. 72 hours before a hurricane or major tropical system hits our service area, a scene such as this is carried out inside FPL's command center. Built to withstand a Category 5 hurricane, the command center is equipped with the latest technology to help predict what impact the storm will have to our customers and the energy grid. The command center also serves as the nerve center for the restoration effort. In addition, our mobile command center streamlines the restoration process for our customers by allowing us to be closer to damaged areas and provide immediate, on-scene information to our field crews and first responders. Crews are positioned, staging sites identified, material is pre-positioned, and if needed, outside utilities are lined up to assist us, and damage projections are made. It's also during this time that many FPL workers, including leaders from virtually every FPL department, leave their families and work around the clock to deal with the storm's threat. In fact, FPL assigns storm riders who ride out the storm at power plants, critical substations, customer care centers, and other key facilities. We're also taking steps to keep your lights on and keep our community safe by partnering with the Florida National Guard to better plan for and respond to a hurricane or severe event. As the storm winds begin to hit, our crews remain in the field, doing what they can to get some of the power back on. But once sustained winds reach 35 miles per hour, it becomes too dangerous for them to work. So like the rest of us, they're forced to wait it out. As the storm hits, our advanced technology shows us what areas are losing power. Our teams closely monitor the system, and when weather conditions improve and are safe, patrollers go into the field, and with the help of new apps and technology, can quickly assess and report the physical damage to the system. Several hours after the storm has passed and before all field assessments are complete, FPL will provide an overall system restoration estimate to our affected customers. Technology is helping us restore power faster for our customers. By using a GPS-based tool together with laptops or iPads, crews in the field can receive real-time information about things like power outages and weather patterns. If a customer's power is out, our crew can see that instantly on their device, make the necessary repairs, and then use it to ping the meter to ensure power has been restored. Our smarter, more storm-resilient grid is helping us to deliver energy our customers can count on, in good weather and bad. Since we're in this together, what about you? What should you be doing these days before a storm hits? The bottom line, since no one can pinpoint and predict with absolute certainty the path and power of a storm, we must be prepared. Here are some electrical-related tips as a storm nears. If someone in your home is dependent on electric-powered, life-sustaining medical equipment, review your family emergency plan for backup power, or make arrangements to relocate. Before lowering a TV antenna or satellite dish, make sure to turn off and unplug the TV and avoid power lines. Turn off all swimming pool pumps and filters and wrap them in waterproof materials. Turn your refrigerator and freezer to their coldest settings ahead of time to help keep food fresh if you experience a power outage. Turn off and unplug any unnecessary electrical equipment, including sensitive electronics. Of course, you should already have your disaster supply kit prepared with non-perishable food, 1 gallon of water per person per day, medicines, any prescription drugs, baby supplies, pet supplies, battery-powered radio, flashlight, and batteries. In addition, this would be the time to fuel your vehicles, and you might want to locate important documents you may need after the storm passes. Put them in a waterproof bag or container so that they'll remain protected if your home is damaged by water, or package them to take with you in the event of an evacuation. If you're in an evacuation zone, make sure you know the route and have everything you need if an evacuation order is made. Once the storm has passed and you begin to assess your damage, we're going to do the same thing, and a whole lot more. FPL's restoration plan is based on a few guiding principles. It's a plan that isn't random and doesn't play favorites. It focuses on restoring power safely and as quickly as possible to the most critical functions, as well as restoring the largest number of customers in the shortest amount of time. To do that, we start by repairing damage to power lines that carry energy from our plants to local substations, which are called transmission lines. At the same time, we fix main power lines that will restore power to critical facilities such as hospitals, 911 centers, and fire stations. This process also helps restore power to the hearts of our community's main thoroughfares, where supermarkets, gas stations, and other facilities serve basic needs and help get life back to normal. FPL simultaneously moves into neighborhoods and works to restore service to the largest amount of customers in the shortest amount of time. Finally, once the larger repairs have been made, we work to restore smaller groups, converging on the hardest hit areas until every customer's power is restored. There are a few things to remember. The restoration work just described is happening simultaneously. The crews that fix smaller distribution lines are not waiting for the power plant to be fixed before they start working. Work is being performed in tandem. That work is defined in scope and severity within the first 24 hours by coordinated damage assessments. In this area, overhead has an advantage to underground lines because you can see the damage. If it's a particularly wet storm with lots of flooding, finding and repairing damaged underground facilities can take longer. If the storm is more windy than wet, the strong winds topple trees and scatter debris, bringing down overhead power lines and obviously causing less damage to the underground facilities. We know our customers want and need information about when their power will be restored. Therefore, even before field damage assessments are complete and within hours after the storm, FPL will provide a preliminary